trip.
Witkoff is going to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to discuss the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and the release of hostages held in Gaza. A person familiar with the details but who is not authorized to speak publicly tells NPR. Israel began letting more aid in this week following growing global condemnation of its restrictions on letting food into Gaza. President Trump this week directly contradicted Israel's own prime minister, Netanyahu, saying that there is starvation in Gaza, and said the First Lady has also seen photos of hungry children in Gaza, calling those photos terrible. Also this week, the United Kingdom and Canada joined France in saying they will recognize a Palestinian state in September, depending on certain conditions. Emily Fang, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Ford is reporting an $800 million loss in profits last quarter as a result of new tariffs. As NPR's Camila Domonoske reports, the auto industry has until now not passed the higher costs onto consumers.
Ford joins GM, Stellantis, Hyundai, Kia, and Volkswagen. All reported hefty tariff bills in their quarterly earnings. That's because higher tariffs on materials, parts, and imported cars have been in place since this spring. But the prices that car buyers pay have risen only slightly. Erin Keating is with Cox Automotive with Jones Kelly Blue Book. She says this is good news for consumers.
For a majority of the automakers, they're really taking the tariffs on the chin.
But she says she expects the vehicles for model year 2026 to start to reflect higher costs. Camila Domonoske, NPR News.
A dozen members of Congress are suing the Trump administration for allegedly blocking them from visiting Immigration and Customs Enforcement detention facilities. As NPR's Tovia Smith reports, the lawmakers say ICE is preventing them from carrying out oversight required by the law.
Lawmakers say their oversight is urgent now, given the unprecedented number of detainees and claims of overcrowding and inadequate food and medical care. But they say the administration's blocking access with a new 7-day waiting period. Skye Perriman is with the liberal nonprofit Democracy Forward, which represents the lawmakers.
The law is very clear that they must be granted access. And this is just one additional example of the administration's ignoring the law and thwarting the role of Congress.
DHS says the advance notice is needed to prevent, quote, interference with the president's authority to oversee executive department functions and to ensure security. Exceptions, they say, can be made. Tovia Smith, NPR News.
Consumer spending in June rose 0.3% over the previous month. That increase was driven in part by higher energy prices. You're listening to NPR News.
Good morning with the latest from the GBH Newsroom. I'm Henry Santoro. Massachusetts-based Moderna announced today that it plans to cut the size of its global workforce by about 10% in the coming months as COVID vaccine sales continue to decline. In a memo that was shared company-wide, Moderna CEO Stefan Bancel says the company expects to be fewer than 5,000 colleagues strong by the end of 2025. Bancel noted that in the memo that Moderna committed earlier this year to reducing its annual operating expenses by roughly $1.5 billion by 2027. He adds that Moderna plans to provide another update to employees at a town hall event tomorrow. Moderna's global headquarters are located in Cambridge. They also have a facility in Norwood. To comply with an executive order signed by President Trump, all references to environmental justice have been removed from the community involvement plan for the Superfund site at Joint Base Cape Cod. The executive order driving this change is called Ending Radical and Wasteful Government DEI Programs and Preferencing. Douglas Carson, a community involvement leader for Joint Base Cape Cod, says changing the community involvement plan triggers a 30-day public comment period, which begins tomorrow, August 1st. But regardless of what the public says, the old version of the community involvement plan is not coming back.
In terms of responding to comments, once we get them in, we'll look at those. The terminology, environmental justice, will not be added back into the community involvement plan based on the guidance that we have. However, we want to make sure that we maintain the intent that we've had for the last 30-plus years of this program.
76 degrees. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Lilly Endowment, a private foundation supporting NPR's coverage of religion and spirituality, and Jarl and Pamela Mohn, focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts.
Eastern Brady. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We'll be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow with 1970s heartthrob John Davison. He's going to sing us he's going to serenade us, Jim. And Love Letters columnist Meredith Goldstein. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Hi.
Hi to you. So before winning the British Open earlier this month, don't worry, this is not a golf discussion. The current best golfer in the world, as I said a minute ago, maybe the best golfer since Tiger Woods, his name is Scotty Scheffler, told reporters that golf was, on its own, quote, not a fulfilling life, and that he'd be open to leaving the sport behind if it meant being there for his son and wife. Here's some of what Scheffler had to say.
This is not the be-all, end-all. This is not the most important thing in my life, and that's why I wrestle with why is this so important to me, because, I would much rather be a great father than I would be a great golfer. That's what's more important to me.
Days later, 7-time Super Bowl champion, you may have heard of him, former Patriot Tom Brady, chimed in with a different take in his weekly newsletter. Do you know he had a weekly newsletter?
I did not know that.
Neither did I. Is a quote, "My dedication to the sport, the hours of practice, the moments I was laser focused, those were times when I believe I was doing the best possible thing for my family and my kids, prioritizing my profession and teaching by example what it takes to be really good." Almost can't read it. At your job. We're opening phone and text lines on the delicate balance between having a successful career and being a successful parent. The number is 877-301-8970. Call or text. You don't have to be a professional sports star worth hundreds of millions to find yourself wrestling with the question, how much to prioritize your kids versus your career? What's the proper balance? How have you made it work in your life? If you have, do you empathize more with Scheffler's approach or with Brady's? And, Bill Belichick, this is important, has weighed in. He's opted for a third option, Marjorie, making sacrifices in his career to prioritize other people's children. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I'm disappointed.
877-301-8970.
Well, two things, Jim. I'm disappointed we haven't heard much from Bill Belichick and Jordan lately.
Upsetting.
Very upsetting. And I think Tom Brady's attitude was clearly why Giselle gave him the boot and immediately had a baby with her jiu-jitsu instructor. She talked many times about how she wanted him to retire. She talked about how she wanted him to retire because she feared a concussion and CTE, which is a serious issue. But it could be part of it. But so what do you think about this?
I think,
Dad.
First of all, no, I'll tell you. The answer is, of course, you try to work out a balance.
Yep.
What I think, I cannot tell a lie. The primary reason why I was interested in this story was because Brady is so out of touch with reality. He's not saying you got to focus on your career, and if you do well, it sets a good example. Of course, you got to make sure you're not there so much that you're not home. He basically says all that really matters is doing your job incredibly well, and when you do it well, you become a role model for the children that you never see. I mean, isn't that the gist of what he seems to be saying here? And by the way, some might argue it's sort of sad that Scheffler doesn't find being the world's greatest golfer or the world's greatest anything fulfilling.
That's
but that's
not
him.
fulfilling.
But he's decided that it's not. That's for him to decide.
I guess it's kind of odd, though. If you were the world's greatest golfer, I would find that moderately. If it's not the world's greatest anything, I might find that fulfilling. But the Brady thing, it's obviously, everybody talked about how his work ethic was unbelievable. He was traveling all the time. I mean, he couldn't be home with these kids. And I'm sure Giselle did get ticked off about that because she had put her career on hold.
I would assume, wait, I'm not a golf fan. Yep. I would assume Scheffler's work ethic is unbelievable, or he wouldn't be the greatest. At least for now, at 29, how to be the world's greatest golfer, and obviously a person who cares deeply about his kid and wife.
No, here's what he says. First of all, he just had a baby. When the kid becomes a little bratty 2 or 3 years old,
he's not going to want to go home at all.
He might change his mind. But here's what he says. Every day when I wake up, I go to work. My wife thanks me for going out and working so hard. And when I get home, now I don't know if that's at 6 o'clock or at 8 o'clock or at 10 o'clock or in 2 weeks if he's traveling with the PGA. But when he gets home, whenever that is, I thank her every day for taking care of our son. That's why I talk about family being my priority, because it really is. Okay, he's got a wife.
First of all, I think the family travels with him because you missed this. I can't believe me, not golf fan.
Saw it.
On the 18th hole, a little baby crawls up to him, and that became the story.
But that's the end on Sunday, right?
Yeah.
They don't arrive on Sunday.
How the hell do you know?
Because these golf tournaments usually start Thursday,
No,
Friday,
no.
Saturday.
I meant, how do you know the wife and the little kid don't travel
Well,
with
she
them
might,
all the
but
time?
you don't know they do, Jim.
I checked it out. They do. I just checked them. But that's not the issue. The issue is I can't believe you're disparaging him. The person who is out of touch here, Tom Brady, just like we discussed yesterday or whenever Trenny was here, when I asked about does he want his son to play football, he says, essentially go for it, rather than I want to explain to him the pros and the cons. This is a guy whose celebrity and brilliance on a field, and he is brilliant, is all. It's everything, by the way. And don't call and say you saw the video of him kissing his son on the lips a couple of years ago.
I was not going to even mention that.
No, not you. I'm talking about listeners. About how much he cares about his kids. Listen to his own words. My dedication is to the sport. There were times when I was doing the best possible thing for my family and my kids by prioritizing my profession.
Let's bring this back to the real world.
What is it?
I think the dilemma now, it's always been a dilemma since women have gone back to the workplace full time, but it's really a dilemma now because everything is so expensive that almost nobody, unless one half of the couple is making tons of money, can afford not to have the second person working in the state of Massachusetts where everything is so expensive. So you got to be making pretty good money, and if you're making pretty good money, then you're expected to work a lot. You have some. You're not working 9 to 5. You're not working 40 hours a week. You're working more than that. So the question is, 24 hours in a day, if one half of the couple is working 60 hours a week, somebody's got to give because the other person can't work 60 hours a week or nobody's there to take care of the children. There is only 24 hours in a day, and it's a really tough decision now for people. And you know what ends up happening?
No.
What ends up happening is that somebody's, usually the mother, you feel like you can give 70% at your job and 70% at home. You are always guilty.
Yeah, having said that, well, it's interesting to say that Jessalyn in Bristol, Rhode Island, a career and mom-driven woman, this conversation is out of touch with reality. Women mothers don't have the luxury to be part of this conversation. Does this story have any women in it? Well, the two individuals don't, but I think, even though I think you're right, ultimately, at the end of the day, if there's a standoff, the woman, more often than not, in a relationship with a man and a woman, takes the brunt of it. But in terms of a high-performing woman in the workplace and another person like Scheffler who says my first obligation is my kids, I think this is totally relevant to women. It just happens that Scheffler and Brady are men. You don't think so?
Well, if your first obligation
Hey, Jessalyn, call us if you can, by the way. We'd love to talk to you.
If your first obligation is to your job and you're a woman, you're going to take you-know-what from all sides. Because it's still...
I think a little less today. I agree. There's an imbalance, a little less today.
The problem is, I've said it a million times, everybody needs a wife. Yeah. And if everybody's working 50 or 60 hours a week, they don't have a wife. Now, the people that can do it, and I've seen this in my own life and in my children's lives, the people that can do it are people that are making so much money
that they can hire all the help
they can hire all the help. They can have a nanny from 7 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. Then they have another nanny from 3 in the afternoon to 11 o'clock at night. So between the two of the nannies, they get somebody to get the kids ready, somebody to stay home when the kids are sick, which they inevitably and the dishwashing and the baby's baths and all that things. Then when mom or dad gets home at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, they're free to help with the homework and actually sit down maybe and have a meal. They don't have to worry about doing the dishes because they get the second nanny to do the dishes.
Here is an anonymous person. This is a good one.
What?
Scheffler sounds so pretentious. Oh, look at the father of the year. Please, it's really not a hard job. You swing a golf club and you walk around. That's a good one.
It is true, and they're always in such beautiful places. That's what I said before. You look at I'm not, a golf watcher on TV, but my sister watches it all the time.
She's a great golfer, your sister.
And my father used to watch golf. So you walk into the room, and it's so quiet. Everything is so quiet. They're taking the chip shot out of the seventh sand trap, and everybody's so quiet. And they're looking at this beautiful venue. There's often ocean there and trees. Of course, these golf.
You can talk and yell at the LIV, the golf, the Saudi.
We don't like that one.
No, we don't. I'm just saying you can do that. Okay, 877-301-8970. One last text before we get to the calls. Anonymous texter, you can have it all, but not all at once. The kids are the only little ones.
Yeah.
Don't miss out on the child. The problem is when you take a break, when your kids are young.
That one drives me crazy because the truth of the matter is you can hire somebody when your kids are small to help them.
Yeah.
You can't hire somebody to show up at the soccer games or show up at the school plays. You can't hire somebody to do the homework with the kids. You can't hire somebody to talk to your teenager through those difficult years. To me, the great irony is that the most time-consuming times for parents are often when the kids are teenagers.
Yeah, but can I tell you a story? You mentioned a soccer. I have a friend, he or she remain unnamed, who deigns to go to the soccer match, and then when her kid scores a goal, she wasn't even watching, and she had to decide whether she would lie to her daughter and say she saw the goal or not. Do you know that woman?
I do.
Who is it?
C'est moi.
Okay. Let's start with Michael in Boston.
But that's the other thing.
What's that?
You know, it's amazing how many root canals you need to have when you're a parent with a stressful job. You know, didn't you just have a root canal last week? Well, it didn't work. I had to go back for the second root canal. But it's a little bit better now. It is a little bit better now.
Little.
But it's
still in balance. There's no question about it in response to the first texter. Michael in Boston, thank you for calling. You're first. Hi.
Hi, how are you, Jim and Marjorie? I'm a first-time caller. I listen to the show all the time.
We love first-time callers. Thank you for doing it, Michael.
I'm on the road all the time, and thank God I found you guys about a year and a half ago. So.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. So you're never home with the children then?
Yeah. Well, you're going to love this because I don't have children, but I can tell you right now.
What?
This is the biggest no-brainer ever.
What?
Right? So Saudi Scheffler is right on. Of course, your family should be your number one priority. In fact, how can you even be good and effective in your professional career if you're not a good parent or if parenting isn't your priority, right? So there's that point. Second point is look what's going on in the world today. Now I'm getting really, really, big picture here.
Yep.
I believe that the breakdown in parenting, I think there's a problem. I think that's where we've got to really focus on good, effective parenting because we're not raising our children to think effectively and to be effectively in leadership positions. And
Why not?
So.
Well, I think their parents have to start thinking effectively for the kids to think effectively. No, we got your point. Michael, we're really glad you... What's that?
Absolutely, I agree. Thank you.
Hey, we're glad you called. Call us again. Can I also anticipate text, and I should have said this before. We know we painted a couple of extremes here. Most people, even if they agree with Scheffler, are not going to be able to say, well, I'm going to stop doing my job so I can be home with my young son and my wife. It presented two alternatives, I guess you could say, relatively extreme. And even though they both may be extreme, the one that I find absolutely incredible is what's his face?
Brady.
Is Brady?
Well,
is this the woman? Oh, this is the woman who texted before.
Here's John and Ashland. Says Brady may have been hit in the head a few times.
Well, his wife said he was. I mean, didn't
she said,
Giselle
he's had several concussions.
This is the woman who texted before about women being left out of the discussion. She was kind enough to call from Bristol. Hi, Jessalyn. How are you?
Hey, first time, long time.
We're thrilled. Hi, welcome. Glad you called.
Hi.
Really glad.
Yeah, I my whole point was that I am a career-driven woman who has kids. I take a little issue with the gentleman saying that parents aren't there and he doesn't have kids. Mm-hmm. But we don't get the luxury of being able to choose if we want to be career-driven or even have the conversation. I guess that was my point. Any woman is going to be looked down upon if they bring up the fact that they get to choose.
Yeah.
In society, which is what Marjorie, I think you were starting to say after I texted or before I texted.
Yeah, the blame usually falls on mom, the person who gets looked on. I'll drag out the same old tired anecdote.
What is it?
Well, when Charlie Baker was running for governor, Charlie Baker's got 3 kids, and they're very good athletes, I guess. And he talked when he was actually the governor, it might have been when he was governor, that he was going off to see somebody's soccer game or somebody's baseball game or something. Now, it's a little bit better now, but you don't, men get called great fathers for doing that, and mothers often get called bad workers for doing the exact same thing.
Well, look at the crap Jane Swift got for taking the helicopter home because their kids lived on the other end of the state. So, Jessalyn, before you go away, since you did, how have you handled the balance, or have you?
I am an entrepreneur. I work for myself, so that I'm a landscape architect, and so I have my own company so that I can balance being a mom and being a high-achieving professional.
Are you married?
It's hard,
Are you married, Jessalyn?
I am. I'm married. I have 2 kids. They're teenagers.
So how much does your husband help?
He is a big help. I would say that I still do. I am the...
Yeah.
Right? There's a difference between... And I think that's the way it falls. It's tricky. We also had kids in the recession. So I think he was getting paid more than I was, as that happens across the board. right? So there were certain things that we shifted in order to make our family and our work life work. That just kind of perpetuated. And he's a great partner, but I definitely still do the majority.
That was a great call, great text. We're really glad you contacted us. Thanks so much.
Young dads I see now in their 20s and 30s, they're much more involved than I think the previous generation fathers were, but it's still hard.
This is a good one from Linda on the South Shore. If I had to do it again, I would hire a driver. Someone told me their friend wanted written on her tombstone, quote, she drove.
That's a great point. When you think about it, then especially if your kids get involved in sports like AAU sports, I mean, you're driving to New Hampshire on the weekends, then you're going to Connecticut the other weekend, or you're in the team is really good. They wind up in some tournament in Delaware.
Well, my kids were not great athletes, but my primary role is driver. I am the same as Linda from the South Shore.
Yeah, you spend a lot of time in the car. You have to have the minivan. Well, I guess you don't have to have the minivan. You can have a big SUV.
I had a big SUV.
7 people. I loved a minivan myself. It was like a driving house. You could fit everything into it. Michael in Medford, what do you think?
Hello, Michael.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm calling about, my wife and I made very conscious decisions, and I work a different schedule, but so we never had daycare or preschool, a little bit of nursery school, and but that way I got to spend a ton of time with the kids when they were little, and I feel like that is going to bode well for the future, and that trust that they will have in me, and they will come to me and my wife because she got to spend a lot of time with them alone too.
So, Michael, how did you do that? Did one of you work in the morning and one of you worked at night, or what?
Yeah, my wife works in a school, and I have actually worked in restaurants for years. So I work.
Oh, okay.
So it hasn't been super easy on the marriage because we don't get a lot to spend a ton of time together.
Yeah.
But I think it's been, I know for just me, that time bonding with my kids is invaluable. Going back to another point about the double standard you have, I have to say that the times when I was with either one or both of my daughters when they were little and it was just me, how many times people would try to intervene like they didn't think I know what I was doing. And I don't think that women got that same reaction.
That's pretty good one.
So often. You need help. I'm like, I'm good.
I'm good. Michael, that's great. Thanks.
Yeah, that's true.
Here's a good text.
Yeah.
Anonymous texter, please fact check this, Jim and Marjorie. But Donald Trump is the greatest golfer in the world and the best father, and he works 24/7. So there you go. He solved that problem. John from Nantucket makes a fine point, too. And again, we just use Scheffler and Brady to set up the discussion, but John makes a good point. I want to point out that Scheffler made over $70 million before endorsements last year. He should be able to quit and take care of the kids and still have generational wealth. Not true for 99.9% of other men.
What a great point. If he's so into his family, he's got $70 million plus the endorsements. John points out, quit and stay home with the kids.
Yeah, but a lot of people work not just because they make money. I mean, that's the primary driver.
Well, it's not fulfilling.
Because they like doing what they're doing.
Well, he said it's not fulfilling.
Are you going to criticize him for this? Really?
Scheffler?
Yeah.
When you're one of the best golfers in the world, you say that's not fulfilling?
Yeah.
What the heck is fulfilling?
But he's decided for him it's not fulfilling.
Being a wonderful father is fulfilling, but it's a little odd to be the best person. I mean, I think probably, when you think of great athletes, Michael Jordan, I think he thought it was pretty fulfilling to be one of the best basketball players that ever lived.
But if they don't, you're taking them to task? I mean, would you not agree?
I think that's not true.
What?
I don't think that's true.
You're saying that, just take for instance, because I am one of the better talk show hosts ever. You're saying that because I do find it fulfilling, is that where you're trying to get to, or you're not?
I'm just saying he just had a new baby. And I think he's probably in that first afterglow, the kid, what is the kid, even a year old? And I think somehow maybe that's it, but I don't believe he doesn't find beating all his other opponents being the best guy.
So is he trying to be
the best athlete because he's worked really hard to get? I don't believe when he says it's not fulfilling.
Here's a good line that I can't believe I never heard when Swift was going home. Jane Swift was the original helicopter parent. Is it possible that no one said that? during all those years?
I don't think.
By the
anybody
way,
did
I've said
say
this
that.
before. For those who don't know, when Jane Swift was governor, and in fairness, she was thrust into it.
She had
an otherwise,
three children
but an
under
otherwise
3 and a 6-hour commute.
An otherwise decent person, Paul Cellucci, left on about a minute's notice to become ambassador to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had She had how many kids out there?
3 kids under 3.
And the husband...
She had twins,
well,
obviously.
he's passed away, so I don't want to be unkind, but he was not exactly fully participating.
This is her first baby.
Right. And so what she did is, because there was we're one of the only states that doesn't have a governor's
fever.
residence, she'd take a helicopter home. There was one columnist, in Boston, who defended her. You know who it was? That'd be Marjorie
That's
Egan.
right. Because if I had the state police at my disposal and I had a helicopter out the window and I had a baby, my first baby, only a few months old, had 104 and 105 fever, and I wasn't sure about my husband, I'd do it too. And you know what? If Paul Cellucci did it as the governor, if Charlie Baker did it as the governor,
you're right.
It would be hero dad.
Read this great text from Bridget from Brockton. Do you have that on your screen?
There's a viral TikTok video going around that says, "A top-tier man is just a mediocre woman." Tell me it's not true. That's a good one.
Good.
Thank you for that, Bridget.
Yeah.
Oh, we have to take a break.
We do.
Music is playing. That's
Thank
my
God
signal.
for music, Marjorie. Huh?
Yeah, I'm obviously very passionate about this issue because I think it's really difficult. As I've said a million times, Gloria Steinem, who said you could do this, never had children. I'm a big fan of Gloria Steinem. It means she didn't really know what she was talking about because when you have to make all this money and everybody's got to work 50 and 60 hours a week, it is almost impossible. We're talking about the balancing act between having a career and raising your kids. Listen to BPR on GBH and NEPM and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The number is 877-301-8970. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back talking about trying to do it all.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, are we doomed to doom scroll? Neuroscientist Emily Falk joins us to talk about the behavioral science behind binging on bad news. Plus, the late Oscar-winning filmmaker Jonathan Demme emerged from the American independent scene and went on to direct a string of major social issue films. His life as an auteur and activist is the subject of a new biography. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And the Museum of Science, presenting the new exhibit, Perception Playground, which explores how your brain shapes your understanding of reality. Tickets at mos.org. And Comcast, offering Xfinity with internet and mobile plans to help stay connected at home and on the go. Restrictions apply. Xfinity Internet requires Xfinity Mobile. Actual speeds vary.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow, Sue O'Connell, our press play panel, John Davidson, the legendary John Davidson, whom I love, TV star extraordinaire, performer, heartthrob, etc. It's all tomorrow at the library. If you're just tuning in, we were quoting Scotty Scheffler, the world's greatest golfer, who said, listen, if this is not fulfilling, if in any way I'm shortchanging my son and wife, I'm going to stop doing this. Tom Brady responds in his newsletter, which neither of us knew existed, saying, I'm being the best father by working 24/7 and being the greatest
Well, he's talking
football
about being a
player
role
ever.
model and being an example for your children, and your children grow up seeing how hard you worked. And there is something to that.
Yeah, not to the extreme about which he was talking. And the third option, which none of you have addressed, which is a little upsetting, is the Bill Belichick approach, where, as we said, he's taking care of other people's children.
Or grandchildren.
Or other person's child, in particular, grandchild. And if you think that is the best way to fulfill your obligations, 877-301-8970.
We have a text for Jim.
What do they say?
The only thing that fulfills Jim Browdy is the promise of the Liverwurst of the Month Club.
Boy, that would... That would
imagine
be.
that.
Can you imagine?
I'll have to look for that for your Christmas gift next year. I've done bacon, sausage, salami. Maybe there is a liverwurst of the month club. I'll look into it and let you know.
Where are we going?
Tom in Milford, thank you for calling.
Welcome, Tom.
Hey, good morning, Jim and Marjorie. How are you guys?
Fine,
Good,
thanks.
thank you.
Okay. A little context from somebody who actually follows the PGA week to week.
Oh, good.
Scotty Scheffler's mother was the big breadwinner. She was a high-powered executive. His father was a stay-at-home dad.
Really?
There you go.
Really?
There you go.
That may weigh into some of his appreciation, if you will, for the nurturing aspect of parenthood.
Or maybe the guilt, because he's not doing what his father did. Maybe that. What do you think about that, Tom?
Amazing.
I don't think he's plagued by guilt. He couldn't do what he does week to week if he was really bothered by demons. And then the other piece I want to throw in here, a lot of people, Jim, you included, look at those pictures on Sunday and say, oh, they're playing this fantastic environment and playing a game, hitting a little white ball around. Well, as professional athletes go, the PGA members only make money when they score well enough to do so.
No, I know.
They have no contract.
I know that.
They have to kill what they eat, so to speak. So that's just a couple of pieces.
Oh, by the way, let me just say, I wasn't disparaging
conversation.
what they do, particularly since Woods, when they were fit and whatever. I was just saying I'm not as into it as obviously you are, which is great, and Marjorie's sister, who's totally into it. That story about Scheffler's upbringing, though, is fabulous. Thanks for sharing that, Tom. We appreciate it.
Yeah, Tom, thank you very much. That's an interesting angle. This is an anonymous texter. This is a mini therapy session for me right now. I have a good job that I enjoy, great pay to afford a good life, but I want more time with my kids. It isn't stressful. I have vacations, but I'm still tethered to the office. Great point. My oldest is off to college soon, and I constantly ask myself, did I get enough time with her? Sadly, I think I didn't, but then again, we wouldn't have been able to afford the nice schools, etc., without my working. It's a dilemma.
That's
and
a great
I
text.
think that text just underscores the dilemma, because it's so expensive now to live, certainly around here, that to afford a house. What is the average house in Boston? Like $700,000 or $800,000? That's a huge amount of money.
Well, I think it's almost up to $1 million.
It's almost
was in the
up to
paper
$1 million.
the
Yeah,
other day.
it's just, and you have to, even if you go, to my hometown of Fall River, it used to be a bargain. Now it's the same thing. These houses are like $700,000. Who can afford that without two people working? I don't know. Jack in Newport, thank you for calling.
Yes, good morning. I think I'm probably the original single father raising children. About 1980, circumstances were such that I ended up in that role, and it was difficult. However, I was blessed in the fact that I was a teacher and I had the same time off as my kids. But basically, it took a village. I had a very strong network of friends who would fill in if I had meetings or something was going on. And I have to say that, being 80 years old, I'm looking back at my life, and there's not 1 minute I regret spending with my kids. Now, I do love kids in general, but it was a labor of love, and now I'm blessed with 3 great grandchildren who I spend a lot of time with because I enjoy them so much.
We can tell in your voice, Jack.
You sound very happy,
thank
Jack.
you. We appreciate it. You know what Jack just reminded me of? Paul Tsongas, the late Paul Tsongas, senator, presidential candidate, senator from Massachusetts, wrote a book, which I read, his autobiography, I guess. You remember at the end? We talked about it with him.
Nobody ever said they wish they spent on their deathbed that they
more
wish
time
they
at the office.
But again, I think
Can't believe you
people
remember
are
that. That was impressive.
stuck spending more time at the
Yeah, I
office
agree.
now because of financial
Well, most
circumstances.
middle-income people and moderate-income people don't have the option.
Exactly.
The issue is, how do you create the balance? I mean, we aren't Scotty Schefflers. We are not Tom Brady's. But I think every parent is confronting that dilemma as best they can.
You can't do it. You're 70% at one place, 70% at the other place, or maybe you're 80% at one place and 60% at the other. But you can't. There's 24 hours in a day. It's not.
There are, by the way.
There are. That's right.
That's a very good point.
Saul
in
from Northampton. Hi, Saul.
You have minutes, Saul. Thanks for calling.
Hello. Thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
I just want to say, speaking as a father who did his best to work against the cultural restrictions, like taking my babies to a play group, I caught a mild amount of hostility from the moms who were there. Sometimes it was flavored with a sort of, shouldn't he be at work by now? And one time it was like, why does a man want to be around the children anyway? What does that say about his character? Like, very suspicious kind of. Anyway, I'm sure women catch more of the cultural restriction on this one than men do, but speaking as a father who tried to work against it, that's uphill work also.
But are you glad you did it, Saul?
I'm very glad I got to spend the time with my children. Some of the experiences that came out of the playgroups are ones I'm not really
That's pretty, that's pretty clear.
Well, I
Saul,
think you're
thanks.
right.
We appreciate it.
I think you're right. I've heard that from men who I used to work at a daycare, and men who work in daycares, I think, get the same thing. What are you doing here? Like there's something wrong with you because you're working at a daycare with small kids? Okay, but I don't think we solved the problem, but we got a lot of great tests, especially one about the Liverwurst of the Month Club. I'm looking at that for Jim's Christmas present.
Can I also say, the Brady thing is a perfect example, is the less you know about the private life, about somebody whose work you admire, generally the better off you are. I'm serious. I mean,
okay.
He disappoints a lot.
We're moving on. Coming up, we're going to talk with Axios business editor Dan Primack. We're going to talk to him about interest rates, tariffs, the state of the stock market, the state of the economy in general. Dan Primack is next. You're listening to Boston BPR and GBH and NEPM. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Brady. We'll be right back.
Monsoon season is part of the rhythm of life in South Asia, but climate change is making monsoon rains less predictable and more dangerous.
So instead of moderate rains spread through the season, we are having long dry spells and then suddenly short spells of heavy rains.
Monsoons are not what they used to be. That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And MIT Sloan Executive Education. You can advance your career with 2 to 3 day courses designed for professionals. Topics include leadership, innovation, and strategic management. Learn more at executive.mit.edu. And Innuendo, open now and during the Massachusetts sales tax holiday August 9th. Hunter Douglas's PowerView line of automated window treatments available for purchase. Hunter Douglas at Innuendo and innuendo.com.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browder is streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back live at the BPL tomorrow. We're joined now in Studio 3 by Dan Primack. Dan is a business editor at Axios and author of the daily Axios. How do you pronounce it, Marjorie?
Ratty.
No, Pro Rata.
Pro Rata.
Newsletter.
I knew there was a rat in there somewhere. Sorry.
Dan, it's great to see you. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Why does he do that to me, Dan? Why does he do that to me? Huh?
Every time. Every time.
Every time. It's really obnoxious, but nonetheless, we're carrying on here. Okay. So, why do we not get lower interest rates yesterday from the Fed?
So the Fed's got basically two jobs, right? It's supposed to look at inflation and it's supposed to look at labor. The labor market's pretty good, right? Low unemployment rate, good jobs. Inflation is kind of relatively low right now. It's still higher than some historical averages, but it's relatively low. So if you're the Fed, you look and say, the economy's okay right now. We're actually meeting our mandates at this current rate. Now, there's some counter arguments to that, saying there's some actual weakness in the underlying data. But right now, if you're the Fed, you're saying we're kind of doing our job.
So if Donald Trump had not had a little fit and demanded that the Fed drop interest rates immediately, do you think Powell would have done it?
Not in the context of these tariffs, no. I think Powell, and by the way, there's a little bit of dissent within the Fed.
Yeah, two of them.
Yeah,
right?
two of them, which is relatively unusual.
Right?
Yeah. It's unusual. It's usually there's usually arguments with some kind of boilerplate. Look, the tariff regime, some of it's supposed to go into effect tomorrow, right? August 1st. Now, just before I came on here, he gave Mexico a several-month delay, 90-day delay. But if you're Powell, you still have that concern about the tariffs, and you want to see that play out and make sure that inflation doesn't go significantly up.
We should mention the great moment where they're both in the hard hats in the building, and Trump is there because he's upset about the $2.5 billion or something, the renovation of the building where the Fed is. And then Trump says, what did he say? It went up to $3.1 billion.
Yeah.
And there's,
and he hands him a piece of paper out of his pocket.
The big burly Trump and, kind of the diminutive Powell's next to him in his little hard hat. And he said, I don't know anything about that. And then Powell says to him, you've added on a third building here.
Yep.
And Trump got
And Trump says it's part of the project, and Powell says it was built 5 years ago.
Finished 5 years ago. I thought that was a humiliating moment, but it seemed to be brushed over really quickly.
It wasn't. Look, for Trump, most of his first term, and like say call it the pre-COVID part of his term, he had kind of these 0% or close to 0% interest rates. That's what he is used to. That's historically abnormal, but that's what he's used to. That's what he wants.
So I'm going to get back to my notion that it's harder for Powell to drop interest rates when Trump keeps saying drop interest rates. He yesterday, before the vote at the Fed, Trump was doing something, can't remember what he was doing. It was actually a good thing, I think. He was signing some bill I'll probably regret having said that, at the White House and said, well, they're probably not going to drop interest rates, but I think they're going to do it in September. So he's now going to start spending August saying they got to do it in September. Does that make it more difficult, or am I
look,
exaggerating the impact of this?
Well, the markets in general think it's coming in September. Like, if you talk and you look at both the bond markets and the public equities markets, there is this belief there are going to be rate cuts this year, and we're in August. There are limited times left. September is kind of when everyone's expecting. But look, it is human nature that when someone keeps yelling at you about you're doing the wrong thing, that you kind of get your back up. And if you're Powell, he knows he's not keeping his job past next May. He doesn't have any reason to appease Donald Trump.
That's what I want to ask you about.
What happens next May? We get a Trump appointee. Well, Powell's a Trump appointee, but we get another Trump.
Even though he forgot a couple of weeks ago there was a Trump
who's
appointee.
willing to do what the president wants, which means we could go back to really low interest rates. But what does that? Is that a good thing for? I mean, it's a good thing if you're buying a house, I guess. But is that a good thing for us or not?
And we'll see what the economy is doing at that point, right? When it comes to what the rate decisions are, I don't think it's a good thing, and I don't think most economists believe it is a good thing if whoever runs the Fed is beholden to whoever is sitting in the White House. There is this value and this distinction, the separation between fiscal policy and monetary policy. It's the reason why Fed chairs go across presidencies, right? It's not like the Treasury Secretary, new president, new Treasury Secretary. The Fed has historically been different from that, for better or for worse. And so it's probably not a great thing if you have this kind of, not just Trump appointee, that's what happens, he's the president, but somebody who feels they are beholden to Trump. Although, by the way, who knows? This person could get in, it could be like a Supreme Court justice and just says, I'm going to do whatever I think is the right thing to do.
That hasn't happened much with Trump appointees. The history is that there are, you predict that a particular justice, for example.
But Jay Powell
Powell is very good. But I want to stay on that just for a second. One of the reasons, just so people understand why you think, and I totally agree with you, it's dangerous for someone who's supposed to be independent being yet another sycophant for the person in power, is the elections are coming up. Let's say the midterms. Monetary, economic policy, whatever the proper adjective is, suggests that lowering interest rates is not good for the economy, but they lower interest. I'm making up a hypothetical. They lower interest rates because obviously it helps the incumbent who wants to do well in the election. So it's essentially abolishing the Fed for all intents and purposes.
That's the reason for it. Economists have never wanted this idea of you're going to get a Fed who lowers interest rates, say, right before an election. By the way, which is what a lot of Republicans will argue that Jay Powell did last fall prior to the presidential elections. And I don't think that's accurate, but you heard that a bunch. Oh, he did it for Biden or he did it for Harris to help her out, and he won't do it for Trump.
Can I ask one last thing about
I have
this
one
too?
more thing too.
Listen, I know nothing about the economy, and obviously that's one of the reasons you're here, because you know a lot about it. But I just read these stories about how the United States will look shaky to other countries in terms of investing here and the dollar. And
if what?
The bond. Well, if you have someone that seemed to be the president's puppet. I mean, you know what I mean? The bond market and all that stuff.
It's an absolute risk. The counter to that right now is that the markets don't seem to be paying attention to much of anything that's happening in the U.S. politically, right? You've got potential massive tariffs coming. S&P 500 keeps hitting record highs. Bond yields haven't done what people expected they were going to do.
So why doesn't the market care?
Part of it is the taco thing, right?
It's not taco anymore.
Well, although look what happened with Mexico today. It's a little bit of it.
But hasn't he cut deals with 11 of the 15 biggest trading partners?
He has said he has cut deals. We haven't seen a bunch of them get papered. But yeah, look, a bunch of them, but they are a lot lower than what we were expecting or what he announced back in April. I think because generally, the global economy still is relatively strong, but the tariff thing is an issue globally. And if you are a country, say you're South Korea or you're Vietnam or India, which is bigger, right? Because they're much higher tariff, no deal there. If they have to cut production or find other trading partners, but that means in the short term cut production, that does mean that'll be an economic growth hit to them, and eventually that does come here. The world is still a little bit flat, and when the global economy slows, the U.S. economy will follow.
I want to talk more about tariffs, but before we do, one last question for the few people out
there who are not obsessed with this interest rate thing, could you do a 30-second tutorial about the trickle-down impact of what the Fed does with interest rates? What does it mean for me, for Marjorie, for the listener?
Okay, so if you're basically doing anything or buying any major purchases, things that are going to require you to take out debt, the biggest one is obviously real estate as a home, right? That is by far the biggest thing anyone can buy. Generally, that means mortgage rates would come down. If the Fed cuts interest rates, mortgage rates generally would come down. It's also inflation could rise, which then impacts everything you buy at the grocery store and everything else, including things for said home. Macro, big picture, the other piece of this is the biggest, or one of the biggest expenses for the U.S. government is interest on its own debt.
Yeah.
When interest rates go down, we as a country pay less, and that therefore should mean there is more money for other things, and conversely when rates are higher.
Okay, so back to tariffs, and since you mentioned inflation. Inflation is not exploding like a number of economists predicted even with the beginning of tariffs. Why? Why has it had as minimal of an impact, at least so far as it has?
It's been a little bit tricky. A lot of people, part of it is because you had a lot of companies, big companies, do a huge amount of imports prior to that April 2nd or around that April 2nd so-called Liberation Day.
Pre-tariff.
So, yeah, big retailers, Walmart, et cetera, they imported tons of stuff and jammed warehouses full. So they'd already gotten it pre-tariff. In fact, it's kind of counterintuitive, but we had bad Q1 GDP or negative Q1 GDP. We just got a good GDP read the other day of 3%. It's a flip. The reason a big reason it was low was because we'd done all this importing. We had imported more than we had exported. That was the reason. One of the reasons the number was pretty good in the second quarter was because we didn't import very much. We didn't need to because we had all this crap in the warehouses. In short, it's kind of swallowing. It's a snake swallowing something. It takes a while to work through the system.
And that's the next question. The likelihood is good once all these 15% go into effect, the absurd 50% tariff on Brazil because he's upset that another corrupt president is not getting off scot-free like Trump did. What do people who you spend time with believe the tariff impact is going to be on prices, let's say 6 months or a year from now?
It's going to increase prices. Even if companies swallow some, if it's a 10% tariff, for example, on whatever it is, your avocado, even if the retailer or the producer is willing to swallow half of it, even if they're willing to swallow 80% of it, there's still something left, and the only person who's going to pay that is the purchaser, which is the consumer.
Why have so many of these? Let's do the EU as a good example, since that was fairly high profile the other day. How much did you love the look on the face of the woman who's the head of the EU while she's sitting in that room with Trump? I just love that. In any case,
well, he's won. Is everyone?
Won in quotes, I think. Well, I don't know.
Well,
why did he, to use Marjorie's word, win in so many of these circumstances?
Because the U.S. consumer is massive and has leverage. Look, why does he keep winning against universities, right? People eventually cave. He doesn't have any political pressure at home right now to cave, right? I think it would be very different if Democrats controlled either House of Congress. He has no political, and also he's probably not running for re-election. He has no reason to cave right now. Other people have constituencies they're responsive to.
But the one thing that
also, can I add? He truly believes in this. This isn't just some sort of naked politics thing. Yeah. He sincerely believes in this as an economic policy.
Well, one of the things that I don't understand, because he does seem to believe in this, we've been talking about it for years, right? Is this idea that it's going to bring factory jobs back and manufacturing jobs back, and I just don't see how. Okay, he's got 3 years left in his term. You can't just build a factory and start a manufacturing in such a short time. So why does anybody buy that idea?
I mean, you could make longer term arguments, right? That if you want to be very generous to him, you could say, well, he's not worried about 3 years. He's worried about the future of America outliving him. And then if the factories are here in 10 years, great. That's good for the country. Look, I mean, some of it makes sense. There's two parts of these tariff deals, right? You get the percentages, 10%, 15%. And then you also hear the second part. The country or the EU has promised to invest X billions of dollars in the country, buy X billions of dollars worth of Boeing planes or whatever it is. That second part, those are usually written pretty squishy. And that was true from Trump's first term too. Whether that stuff comes to play, which is a lot of that manufacturing build, is unclear. There's other build going on in the United States, data centers, for example, which aren't manufacturers, and really once they're built, you don't need a lot of people, construction jobs. So there is a big commercial building boom in the United States right now, but it's not necessarily manufacturing.
But the other thing about the manufacturing thing is in the future of the country is people. I would think they'll leave again like they did before because first the Northeast to the South for cheaper labor, then the South to overseas. I mean that's not gonna. We're not going to be paying people the same wages as they are in Vietnam.
No, we're not. And also, there's obviously ongoing automation too, right? A factory today in the United States isn't going to look the same in 10 years. It's going to have less people. I mean, when we talk about AI, we think of that a lot about ChatGPT and, personal companions. It's also being employed in manufacturing facilities, and the robots there are going to get better and better and smarter and smarter.
Talking to Dan Primack, he's business editor at Axios and author of the daily Axios Pro Rata newsletter. Speaking of Vietnam, correct me if I'm wrong, it relates to Marjorie's manufacturing question. Didn't I read the other day that while manufacturer of the iPhone is moving at a dramatic rate, moving out of China, it's not moving here, obviously. It's moving to Vietnam and I think India. So isn't that the likely impact of manufacturing switching, but more to lower tariff?
In some cases. So we saw a lot of this coming out of COVID, right? Because China as a country really shut down more than a lot of other Asian countries did. So you saw a lot of
supply,
a lot of U.S. countries saying, "Oh my God, we've consolidated all of our manufacturing in China. We can't do this." So they kind of did manufacturing arbitrage. It's a little harder to do with tariffs when the numbers keep changing every day. But that's what we're seeing. Look, I can't remember the number, but Tim Cook at some point did say what an iPhone would cost if it was completely manufactured in the U.S. And it was an extraordinary number.
It was $3,000 or something
it was thousands
like
of
that.
dollars.
Yeah, I thought so because I needed a new iPhone. That would be very distressing.
So you wrote about...
but you'd probably buy it.
Yeah.
We have discussed mostly the political and media impact, journalistic impact of the Skydance merger ad nauseum, maybe 100 times on the show. You wrote a piece about it. Tell us what this is the Paramount. Well, explain the background for those few who weren't paying attention, and then tell us your take.
Sure.
On this.
So Skydance is a media company that's mostly been a film producer. They're responsible for a lot of Tom Cruise stuff, Top Gun, et cetera. It's run by a guy named David Ellison, who's the son of Larry Ellison, who created Oracle, big Trump guy. Anyway, they agreed to about a year and a half ago to buy Paramount, which, among other things, owns CBS, which actually doesn't make a huge amount of money for Paramount, but it's the thing we all know. Anyway, the deal just is going to probably close today or tomorrow.
Well, I thought they voted the other day.
They voted the other day, but it will actually close today or tomorrow, be completed. And in part seems to have happened because CBS was willing to pay out to Trump $16 million for a lawsuit he brought against 60 Minutes. And then Skydance provided a bunch of other stuff. They promised not to have any DEI programs and a handful of other things. With the FCC, it seemed to be a little quid pro quo. What I wrote the other day, though, was the U.S. government oversight of this merger was very specific to CBS because the FCC does not have any oversight of cable channels or of streamers or of movie studios. They do, though, of broadcast channels, whether that be local or national. So they had a lot of leverage in approving this merger when it came to CBS. Going forward, though, for Skydance, they don't have all that much leverage. They can't really even enforce some of the agreements that were agreed to because there's no real rules around it. And then if Skydance wants to buy a movie studio or something like that, which is probably what it wants, FCC has no say.
So you use the term quid pro quo, which is a polite term for bribe.
Yeah.
Which is the, not your term, but the Elizabeth Warrens of the world made a convincing case, least convincing to me, that when you pay $16 million to settle a lawsuit that virtually no lawyer in America thinks has any merit at all. For those who don't remember, this is how 60 Minutes edited the Kamala Harris interview, which is how they edited every interview. Trump's argument was you edited out the stuff that would have been really good for me and bad for her. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. So the argument that Elizabeth Warren et al. Make is this is essentially a bribe, so the Redstone would get even richer. Do you
get even richer and get rid of this company she's been trying to get rid of for years? Look, I mean, it's funny. Companies often will settle lawsuits because they view them as nuisances. And if you're talking about an $8 billion, if this was any other context, if this wasn't media, you'd say, you know what, it's worth settling a $16 million lawsuit to get our $8 billion merger through. It's a rounding error, but it's media. And when it comes to media, there are some journalistic principles at stake which do absolutely seem to have been violated by this. But going forward, the real question I think is for other broadcasters or other radio or TV that are overseen by the FCC, there is now both a playbook and a threat of what you may have to do if you want to get some sort of transaction. And as you know, media is an industry that consolidates all the time. Radio stations, TV stations get sold constantly.
You know,
the
I'm sorry.
ombudsman. You mentioned the ombudsman in your piece. That kind of gave me the creeps.
Yeah, so Skydance has to apparently hire one officially for CBS, but it's such a weird language. They're supposed to, and I don't have it in front of me, but they're supposed to oversee and guarantee diversity of viewpoints in all, not just news, but also entertainment. You're talking about what, sitcoms and NCIS? Who's the arbiter of that? It's just odd. There's no real rules. It sounds really good in a press release, but candidly, it's notable. The FCC could institute a rule around this, whether it be a DEI rule or however they want to define it. But that then would go to public comment, and that would have to get approved, and that could actually get challenged in court. They've not done that. Instead, they're signing these side deals, and I think that's notable. I'm not sure Brendan Carr at the FCC thinks he could get a rule through.
So what do you think, the thing a lot of us associate with CBS News, of course, is 60 Minutes. So what do you think when they start running their summer reruns, what do you think they're going to be doing in the fall? Do you think they'll be, you could say that the deal's already done so they can go back to being, honest journalists, or maybe they can't?
They haven't stopped, in all fairness.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been pretty tough throughout.
That's right, but they haven't run anything, since June they've been in repeats, or July they've been in repeats, so we haven't seen the new season.
Yeah. We don't know yet. And look, stories, if there is some sort of pressure that comes from Skydance onto 60 Minutes, I'm sure these are journalists, they know how to leak things pretty well. We'll hear stories about it, but jury's out. I have a hard time believing people who are career journalists at 60 Minutes are going to start taking marching orders from Larry Ellison's kid. That seems surprising.
Well, look at the tsunami of people who've left the Washington Post. It's like dozens.
Well, I've said it about 100 times. A columnist who quit, who I admire a lot, Ruth Marcus, admitted in a story she wrote in the New Yorker that she self-censored a couple of times. So it isn't always that orders have to come from above, sort of the unspoken notion. Yeah. I have one last thing. What are you smiling at?
I was just thinking of the Borowitz thing where he had the separated birth of David Ellison and Eric Trump. You really couldn't tell which one was which.
I just have one last question. Is there any economic, stock market, any impact in your world of the world of capitulation to Donald Trump? Does it matter that if Trump decides he's unhappy with you, whether you're a media company, whether you're a law firm, whether you're a university, and I assume anything else he can think of, that you have to go on bended knee and agree to his terms? Does that matter at all in your world?
I mean, it should, but it doesn't seem to. People are bitching about it and complain about it, but then they do it, right? We've seen, again, I think I said this last time I was with you guys. I still think Harvard is the question mark, and that obviously Times report about $500 million potentially. Brown capitulates yesterday, although it gives all the money to local workforce.
Also the day before
whatever.
the $500 million, a thing saying that's a possibility, they essentially get rid of their DEI office too. So
they do. Look, I mean, the reality is everybody is capitulating. This is a new normal for American politics and American business. I mean, look, American business has always tried to cozy up to whatever, whoever's sitting in the White House because there's so much regulation. They get regulated on everything. Yeah. This is new, and it's been interesting that you've got these captains of industry, none of whom have been willing to stand up so far.
Yeah.
Dan, it's great to see you.
And it's new also because no one has broken the law repeatedly like President Trump has, which seems not to bother these people.
Good to see you, Dan Primack, as always.
Thanks for having me.
Really
Thank you very
appreciate it.
much. We've been speaking with an author of the Daily Axios Pro Rata newsletter. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
We say goodbye to those who are listening on NEPM. Thanks so much for tuning in. But you can tune into the fabulous 413 starting at 3 o'clock with Monty and Khalees. The show continues here in Boston. After the new news, we're going to talk with former Public Safety Secretary Andrea Cabral. We're talking on Tulsi Gabbard, the Epstein case, a lot of other stuff. Frontline's James Jacoby, is going to join us after that on the whole big takeout on what's going on with Iran and Israel.
I'm also going to comment on the deal offered by the legislature to the bar advocates yesterday.
Okay, you're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. He's Jim Brady. I'm Marjorie Egan. We'll be right back after the noon news.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the MBTA commuter rail, helping riders skip the stress of city traffic and parking. Just take the train. You can plan your trip at mbta.com/massbytrain. When her father dies suddenly, a doctor is thrust to the helm of a decades-long struggle to aid a West Virginia town plagued by cancer-causing chemicals. Watch Impossible Town tonight at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on hour 2 of BPR. Former Massachusetts Public Safety Secretary Andrea Cabral joins us. Trump is very good at declaring emergencies to allow him to do things that would otherwise be illegal. Will the courts back him up?
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then Lucy Wightman is out with her new memoir, Princess Cheyenne, My Life as Boston's Most Famous Stripper. She'll regale us with some of the most outlandish moments from her career, having life in the combat zone, her engagement to Cat Stevens, and when she headlined the Naked Eye Cabaret. That's next in the second hour of BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Louise Schiavone. President Trump has announced an extended 90-day tariff negotiating period with Mexico, with a 25% tariff rate in place in the interim. This after a phone conversation with Mexico's president. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is in Israel to try to restart the Gaza ceasefire talks amid a deepening food supply crisis there. Jordanian officials today say they were able to move 35 aid trucks into northern Gaza. Another 30 trucks were delayed by Israeli restrictions. Health officials in Gaza say dozens of Palestinians were killed yesterday, and several were wounded as they awaited a food delivery on the Gaza Strip. NPR's Emily Feng has more.
Starting Monday, Israel has been pausing fighting for about 10 hours a day to let in more food trucks. But in reality, we've been reporting that very little food is actually making it to people who need it. Aid organizations say Israel has not permitted them to bring in the volume of food and aid that they would like to see, and that scarcity means people are still desperate, and they and gangs are looting these trucks.
NPR's Emily Feng. Some pro-Trump podcasters say they are growing frustrated at the president's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. NPR's Elena Moore reports.
Joe Rogan hosts the #1 podcast in the country, according to the audience tracking firm Edison. Last fall, he endorsed Trump after having him on the show. But in recent episodes, he's been critical of Trump over Epstein, arguing officials didn't keep their word to make more information public.
People are cynical because you had all this hope for change, and then you realize, the same people that are pulling the strings are still pulling the strings.
Rogan is one of several podcasters angry about this, which may be notable, given these shows have an audience that politicians want to reach. According to Edison, the vast majority of listeners are young men who don't overwhelmingly align with a major political party. Elena Moore, NPR News.
NASA and SpaceX are preparing to launch a crew of 4 to the International Space Station from Florida's Kennedy Space Center. Central Florida Public Media's Brendan Byrne has details.
SpaceX's Dragon capsule will carry 2 U.S. astronauts, one from Japan and a Russian cosmonaut. After launching, it will take about a day and a half to make it to the station. Once there, the crew will spend about 6 months living and working aboard the orbiting lab. The mission's pilot, Mike Fink, will mark his 4th trip to space, launching previously on NASA's Space Shuttle and Russia's Soyuz capsule. It will be the first space flight for Commander Zena Cardman. She was set to launch to the station last year, but was bumped from that mission to make room for NASA's Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams. The agency determined their ride to space, Boeing's Starliner capsule, was unsafe to return them. Instead, they returned to Earth in SpaceX's capsule. For NPR News, I'm Brendan Byrne in Orlando.
The NASDAQ is up 202 points. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Brown University defending its deal announced Wednesday with the Trump administration, saying it will not compromise academic freedom or the school's autonomy. From our higher ed desk, GBH's Kirk Carapezza reports, like Columbia, Brown has agreed to let the government monitor its admissions and its hiring data.
Unlike Columbia, which agreed to pay more than $220 million to the U.S. Treasury,
Brown will put $50 million toward workforce programs in Rhode Island over the next decade. In a statement, Brown President Christina Paxson says that lines up with the school's mission to serve the local community. Brown was among the Ivy League schools hit with a large-scale freeze on federal research dollars, part of the fallout from how campuses responded to anti-Semitism complaints during Gaza-related protests. This comes amid reports that Harvard may be open to a significant financial settlement to have its federal funding restored. Kirk Carapeza, GBH News.
Birthday wishes are in order today to a couple of former Massachusetts governors. Bill Weld turns 80 degrees today, and Deval Patrick turns 69. Weld was the 68th governor of the Commonwealth. He served from 1991 to 1997, while Deval Patrick was the state's 71st governor. He served from 2007 to 2015. Red Sox get to chill with Netflix for a day as they get ready for the Astros at Fenway this weekend. First game tomorrow night, 7:10. Golf, the Women's British Open gets underway today. Little bit of rain out there, 76 degrees. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher's dedicated team of specialists provide resources on investing, retirement income, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're going to be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow with American heartthrob John Davidson and Love Letters columnist Meredith Goldstein. Hello again, Jim.
Hey, did you just hear what Henry said? Weld and Deval Patrick have the same birthday.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Two governors, yeah.
And Deval Patrick, the former boss of our next guest for at least part of her career, stopped by the studio yesterday before the show.
He did.
How good's he look?
He looked terrific.
He looks really fit and great. In any case, he was, for a bunch of years, the boss of our next guest when she was the Secretary of Public Safety. That'd be Andrea Cabral. She's also the former sheriff of Suffolk County, and she joins us weekly. Hey there, Andrea.
Hi, how are you?
Excellent.
We're great. So, Andrea, let's start with all these emergencies. President Trump has declared lots of emergencies where you didn't really think there was an emergency, but his declaring things as an emergency and getting away with that has enabled him to rush things through that normally would need Congress or some other kind of delays. But now there's a court hearing about his emergencies, like on tariffs, which is supposed to be raised by Congress or not raised by Congress. It's going to be considered in court today. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I mean, one would hope that the federal judge in that case would find that there was no emergency. I mean, with Trump, like I say all the time, it's axiomatic. If he's saying something publicly or privately, it's a lie, right? And you can kind of bank on that. It's clearly declaring things as emergencies is so that he can invoke emergency executive power, which allows him to circumvent Congress. Up until this point, where he is in his second term as president, it happened when he was in his first term, Congress, when it was functioning, served as a check on that. The first check on the abuse or overreach by a president, and in this case, it's not overreach, it's too mild a word, it's always an abuse, is supposed to be Congress. But here, we have a Congress that has absolutely ceded all of their authority to the President of the United States, which is absolute violation of their oath and their basic fundamental mission. So Congress ordinarily would be the first one to raise the call that the president was overreaching. If Obama sneezed the wrong way, Republicans in Congress would scream about overreach. They'd scream about tyranny, and that he was, completely unfit to be president because how dare he sign a single executive order for anything. In the case of Trump, they've just, the reason I used the word last week, poltroons, is that they've just laid out for him. And so it falls to the court and to the judiciary to be the check and balance on that. But that is an entirely different process than the congressional process of checks and balances against the executive. There's a reason that the founders made the congressional legislative branch, even though all three branches are separate and co-equal, really the most powerful branch because it is a check on the power of the executive, and they didn't want another monarchy.
I want to get back to this tariff thing in a second. Before I do, but since you mentioned the Obama thing, we were supposed to have Mark Leibovich from The Atlantic with us at 12:30. He had a personal thing today where we're going to reschedule him. And the reason we had him is he wrote a piece about, where's Barack Obama? A lot of people are saying we need Obama's greater involvement. He says one of the ways that Obama could re-enter the fray is by creating a podcast which could be titled, "Can You Imagine If I Did This?" which would really, is the point you made, which is brilliant. So can I get back to the tariffs for a second? When I'll sort of half play lawyer. This case, like on tariffs, should be so obvious. He says it's an emergency, and his issue is these amazing huge trade deficits. The only thing that undercuts that it's not an emergency, that it's an emergency, is we've had trade deficits for 49 straight years, which is not exactly the definition of an emergency. And yesterday, when he said we're going to impose 50% tariffs on Brazil, and the reason he did it is because another corrupt president is standing trial, Bolsonaro, who Trump loves for obvious reasons. He's upset about that. We have a trade surplus with Brazil. So it seems to me the facts are so unassailably obvious. How does a court, other than Alito and it's not in front of the Supreme Court now, but other than Alito and Thomas kind of people, how do they not say there's no emergency, at least in this case?
Well, I assume that that's exactly what's going to happen and that will be affirmed by the appeals court. But he's not trying things at the district court level with the expectation that he will necessarily win. And when I say he, I mean the Department of Justice, which is funded by taxpayers, but which I say all the time is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Trump organization at this point. They are getting everything to the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court, like the GOP majority in Congress, has completely ceded their authority and the authority of actually all the branches to Trump. So yes, I expect that a judge is going to find that there is no emergency, and but there's also we're so used to talking about things that come out of the executive, policy decisions that come out of the executive, as though they contain actual policy, as though this trade deficit is actual economic policy or some level of foreign policy, not just a wholesale alienation of our allies with absolutely no economic strategy in place, that there's no real method to this madness other than his assertion of power and his attempt to raise money to offset the national deficit that he's going to explode with the tax cuts. So there's no rhyme or reason to this. So when we analyze it like rational people,
that's a very good
point. That's our problem. That we're trying to rationalize it as though he were a president of years gone by.
So in furtherance of your point that the Republicans in Congress will do anything that Donald Trump wants them to do, could you explain to people who have missed it, who is Emile Beauvais and what new job was he just given in the last, 24 to 48 hours?
Okay, so Emile Beauvais, like Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche and a few others, are among the lawyers who at various times have represented, when they were in private practice, represented Trump personally in the various criminal cases and civil cases against him. They are literally his lawyers. Once he became president, he appointed them to various positions or made sure that Congress would confirm them to various positions within his cabinet. Pam Bondi is the Attorney General. Bob and Blanche both went as top DOJ officials, despite the fact that they don't represent the American people as they should if you're going to work for the DOJ, but they literally have a private attorney-client relationship with the President of the United States. Beauvais has been at the Justice Department for a hot second because Trump just became president. He's still in the first year of his second term. So Beauvais went there, and now he's been nominated for a federal judgeship to a court of appeals, which is insane, first of all. But second of all, not only does he have a history of a personal attorney-client relationship with the president that immediately and for all time conflicts him out of anything having to do with the United States government or the Trump administration or the executive branch. But two whistleblowers have come forward to basically expose the fact that he not only, first of all, told DOJ officials to openly flout court orders around some of this immigration stuff, the illegal deportation of individuals and illegal deportation of groups of people, that they should simply ignore what the federal district court judges were telling them to do, not, saying don't let planes leave our airspace, don't deport people to third countries where they're not from. But another whistleblower has come forward to expose the fact that he apparently lied in his confirmation hearing when he was asked directly about, and now I'm forgetting, it just flew out of my head. I'm forgetting the second thing that the whistleblower came forward.
He said he had an audio recording. He said he never told people in this meeting to F the law, that they should just go F.
Yes.
And he said he never said that. And then the second whistleblower came forward with that audio recording, which shows that he did.
Yes. Right. And one was a meeting, was a private, not a conference call. I don't know if it was in person or a conference call, meeting with top DOJ officials, right? So this is where he would be most likely to have fewer inhibitions because he thinks he's talking to people who are his subordinates. So, and they're only among the top DOJ officials. So, who's going to blow the whistle on him? And it appears pretty clear that when he was asked directly about it in his confirmation hearing, and I don't think there was a huge amount of publicity around this confirmation hearing, which really should have been treated more like a SCOTUS confirmation hearing, he simply said no and said, I don't recall. And if you look at what's being reported about the transcript of that hearing, if he had been just a simple witness in a misdemeanor assault and battery case by a state district court judge and said, I don't recall that number of times, no judge or jury would have ever found him credible. This man is going for a lifetime federal judgeship where he already has a degree of loyalty to Trump that got him both the DOJ jobs and the nomination to the federal bench, who is has an active conflict of interest. And he comes before the Congress, says, I don't know, I can't recall using those words, or I didn't use the second thing, Marjorie, was
I made a mistake, by the way.
It was about Danielle Sassoon, who resigned. Right, who resigned,
yes.
And he told these people that she had not resigned, that she actually, she had resigned ahead of an investigation he was going to open for her. And when he was asked about that at the hearing, what he said was, I don't recall using the word reassigned, which would be versus we were going to terminate her, right? So now he's using semantic games before the Congress. And because it's this particular Congress, they're markedly uncurious about the number of times someone could say they didn't recall a meeting that simply happened months ago. This didn't happen years ago. This happened a few months ago. So yes, he will be, he was confirmed by the Senate. He will be on the bench. He's young. He will be on the bench for years and years and years, doing additional damage to this country and this democracy.
I just want to correct myself. It was the first whistleblower that talked about how Beauvais had talked about the laws. The second whistleblower talked about how it was about how he wanted to dismiss the case against Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City. That was the second whistleblower.
That's why
Danielle Sassoon,
because she wouldn't she wouldn't dismiss
and by
the
way,
case.
I don't know if you mentioned this, Andrew, that he also went after the prosecutors who were prosecuting the people that attacked police officers on January 6th.
And the FBI agents.
Yeah, and the FBI.
I didn't realize, by the way, he is only 44 years old.
44 years old.
Which means he could be there for decades and decades through 8-9 presidents.
And you can't it's really hard to get rid of them.
One last thing that shows how, what do you mean, never got rid of them? There have been impeachments of federal judges like 3 times or 2 times in American history.
I mean, you can get rid of them. It's very difficult. The impeachment.
And if Trump can get one of his majority on the SCOTUS to retire, he will appoint Beau. And this Congress, this Senate will confirm him, and then he will really be in a position to do damage.
You know, the thing I want to just mention for a second is, the chair of the Judiciary Committee, who is only 92 years old, Grassley from Iowa, so obviously has to worry about his future. when he deals with Trump. Got a lot of praise yesterday for standing up to Trump because he said that he was disappointed and offended because Trump wanted to get rid of the system where home state senators could veto the nomination of a U.S. attorney. Now, he got praise for that. Yet this shows how, and this is the media's fault, by the way, in my opinion, to get praise for this at the same time that he is shepherding through Beauvais' nomination. And the reason it's particularly galling, there are 535 members of the United States Congress. If you were to ask an observer of the Congress, who is the person who has spent more of his career focused on the importance of whistleblowers, it would be Grassley.
Grassley.
In fact, here's the headline from the Senate Judiciary Committee, his committee. This is the day before. Yesterday, Grassley introduces bipartisan legislation to strengthen FBI whistleblower protections. So he's Mr. Pro-whistleblower. We have all the three whistleblowers basically saying Beauvais is a threat to democracy and the judiciary. He ignores them all and votes for this guy to be a lifetime appointment.
To two women, Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins of Maine, both of them voted against Beauvais. So that's good.
And the reason he gave, by the way, just I don't mean to interrupt you, Margie, but the reason he gave for ignoring the whistleblowers, because he's well aware of what you just said, Jim. This is his whole history and legacy, right? He said he asked for the information from the whistleblowers, and they didn't give it to him until just before the vote. So, Mr. Carroll, I've been in the Senate since I was in diapers, doesn't have the power or the gravitas to hold up a nomination in order to fully explore what these whistleblowers are disclosing. And I'm sure the delay was because the whistleblowers' lives are in danger. And they have to make sure that before they turn anything over, they're protecting the people who are blowing the whistle.
Yeah, and if you look at that Truth Social post of his, Trump goes on to list not just Grassley, but about 17 other people as sleazebags. They're all sleazebags.
Nice.
I mean, it's really, the language is really something.
It's also another thing is we occasionally with Nancy Gertner, I wouldn't say praise, but highlight a rare moment when Chief Justice Roberts takes his head out of the sand and actually defends the integrity of and speaks to the safety and security that's necessary for judges, but we're not going to hear a word about this at all. Now, one last thing while we have you is obviously the major news story in America that has obsessed everybody is the whole Ghislaine Maxwell deal. And we read yesterday they want her to testify in front of Congress, and her demands are very modest, which is I'm not testifying until, 1, the Supreme Court has finished hearing my appeal, 2, I get all the questions in advance, and 3, I need either clemency or a pardon promise before I say it. This is a convicted liar who's been sentenced to 20 years in jail for being involved in pedophilia and facilitating pedophilia, maybe the largest pedophilia ring in American history, etc. So you were a former prosecutor that occasionally had to make deals with the devil, like one does, to get testimony out of people in an attempt to get bigger people and more important kind of people. What's your reaction to this whole back and forth between Todd Blanche, the number 2 guy who went all the way down to Tallahassee to meet with her at the prison 2 days in a row, the negotiations with Congress? What's your reaction to all this?
That it's entirely performative. I mean, Todd Blanche, I mentioned Todd Blanche at the beginning of the show. He represented Trump, too. He was Trump's lawyer.
Yeah.
So the idea that Todd Blanche would be doing anything on behalf of the American people through the Department of Justice and his top position there is ludicrous. I mean, first of all, if I'm Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney, that's exactly what I asked for.
Yeah, of course.
If you want my testimony, this is what the price of the testimony is. They don't really expect to get anything out of Ghislaine Maxwell. This is Congress's way and the DOJ's way of working hand in glove to make it look like they're trying to actually do something that they're not trying to do at all. The last person that Trump wants anybody to hear from is Ghislaine Maxwell. She knows full well what his relationship with Jeffrey.
Andrea, I got to interrupt you. As someone who said almost exactly what you said the other day, Nancy, former Judge Gertner, I disagree with him. I disagree with you. It is so obvious to me that it's exactly the opposite. That if she does testify or say anything publicly, she's going to do exactly what Trump and Blanche want in return to get her pardon, which is to say, I was there for everything. Donald Trump had nothing to do. He knew nothing about anything. He was a friend of Epstein's, but totally unaware of the nefarious behavior of my former boyfriend. Don't you think?
No, I completely agree with you, Jim. When I said they don't want to hear that, I should have said they don't want to hear anything truthful from her.
Okay.
So that's why if I'm her lawyer, I'm saying, look, you give me absolute total blanket immunity. If I so much as get a traffic ticket in my years to come, I get out of that as well, because that's exactly right. She would then do what they wanted once she's free and clear. But if she were to ever actually testify to what she knows, they wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Andrea, can you answer a question that I'm befuddled by? Because I am in the school of belief that the only person who Donald Trump cares about is Donald Trump. And the only reason that he doesn't want to release these documents, which he can, not the grand jury minutes, which need court approval, all the other documents which dwarf what's in the grand jury report, he could order it today and it would be released, well, I don't know, by tonight, but it'd be released immediately. The only question I can't answer is, if I'm right that that's obvious, why didn't the Democrats under Biden release these files? And the only answer I can come up with, which is as speculative as my first thing, is that Bill Clinton is or some major Democrat is implicated in these documents. No proof of that, by the way. What other reason for the Biden administration not releasing these documents is there?
I think there's a problem with precedent. I really do. Certainly you can go through all of the documents, you can redact the files. It does have to do with balancing the public interest in seeing what's in the files against the privacy interests and the system itself, the secrecy in grand jury proceedings. You also balance how much oxygen you give something like this because it is salacious. It's entirely possible that there are names in there that neither side wants to have out. Yeah. But the notion that we then become a country that crosses that line whenever there's enough uproar to cross it between process and public interest, I worry about that myself. I worry about that as a prosecutor. I worry about, people being able to come in and sort of say, in circumstances that can be less clear cut or less murky, or murkier than this. Yes, but you did it before, so why don't you do it again? Yeah. And there's also the idea of abuse. I mean, what you're seeing here is basically, it's abuse that Trump ironically doesn't like because his own supporters are calling for all of this to happen. But these are not easy questions for the system itself to answer. And when the system's in the hands of the most incompetent, unqualified people probably in the history of any cabinet, maybe save the first, and even they, I think, were more qualified. It really becomes a huge danger for the country.
Andrea,
on that note,
thank you.
Good to see you, Andrea Cabral.
Thanks, Andrea.
See you.
See you soon. We've been speaking with former Suffolk County Sheriff and former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety, Andrea Cabral. Coming up after a quick break, Lucy Wightman on her memoir, Princess Cheyenne, My Life as Boston's Most Famous Stripper. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Trusted, local news.
Two Market Basket executives are speaking out about their terminations and the ongoing turmoil in the grocery chain's leadership ranks.
GBH News.
This summer, the aquarium has returned 36 turtles to the ocean, and it's currently got 6 more that it's caring for.
Here for what matters to you.
In recent weeks, the Trump administration has moved to terminate parole for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans.
GBH 89.7. Online at gbhnews.org.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Mass General Brigham. Their leading heart and vascular specialists are committed to providing breakthrough care to patients with cutting-edge research and innovative treatments. Learn more at massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. And Direct Tire and Auto Service, offering a full range of services, including brakes, shocks, diagnostics, and AC work. Direct Tire and Auto Service. Not just service, customer service. DirectTire.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're live at the library tomorrow. We intended to have the Atlantic, formerly the Boston Phoenix, I should say, by the way, Mark Leibovich on the show today, talk about his piece about where is Barack Obama. Mark had some sort of personal thing that came up at the last minute, so he wasn't able to be here. We will be rebooking him. He also wrote a fabulous piece after spending much of a year with Ringo Starr. So Obama and Starr on the agenda. In any case, instead we're going to listen to a recent conversation we had with Lucy Wightman about her terrific memoir, Princess Cheyenne, My Life as Boston's Most Famous Stripper. Here's the interview. It's this fabulous story about her life, the combat zone, the people she met along the way. It is a true must-read. Lucy, congratulations. It's great to see you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you did a fantastic job, and your descriptions early on of the combat zone and what went on with the young strippers in some of these other places, not the Naked Eye, but some of these other places. It was great stuff. But just tell us a little bit. You know, when people started writing pieces about you, and there were so many, Boston Magazine, Evening Magazine, you were everywhere in Boston. You were like the WASP stripper. You were like the debutante stripper. So tell us about that little waspy upbringing of yours back in Illinois, then New Canaan.
Yes, Lake Forest, Illinois, and then New Canaan. So, you know, when you're born into a culture, you don't know it's a culture until you get out, right? So, I mean, I didn't know. I just knew that was, you know, my family, and it was very whitewashed and very homogenous. That's pretty much it. And there were expectations, but nobody told us what they were. Parents did not sit down and teach us things. We were just supposed to be, you know, just sort of by osmosis or something, learn how to be social and polite and lovely.
And you're an only child. And when you're an only child, like I am, when people say, oh, that explains everything. So you're a young kid, you're 15 or 16 years old, and you decide to self-tattoo. I don't even know if that's a verb. What is
it is now.
What is the...
is it hyphenated?
It is hyphenated. What is the tattoo that you put on yourself, and who was it a tribute to?
So the tattoo was SDG for Stephen Dimitri Giorgio.
Who would he be?
He would be Cat Stevens.
Cat Stevens. How old were you when you did the tattoo?
14. I was 14. Grounded for the summer.
And why were you so enamored of, I would argue, obsessed when you read the book with Cat Stevens?
Psychotically obsessed.
Why were you psychotically obsessed with Cat Stevens at 14?
I think it was a combination of his face, his voice.
Very cute.
Very cute.
Yes.
And my experience of music. So I have this weird thing called music synesthesia, which is a merging of senses, you know, when things cross over. Some people smell numbers or colors, and it affects different parts of my body. So I think it was all those things combined, and I was bored most of the time, and that filled a lot
Frank
of
from Sharon texts and says, Princess Cheyenne's dance to Tainted Love was beautiful and very memorable. Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute.
But you had you mentioned, you know, the parents weren't really involved in your upbringing, so you had a very unconventional childhood. And you had, if I may say, I mean, you're a mother, I'm a mother, you had a very cruel mother. She said terrible things to
she
you.
Was very cold.
Yeah, so that was really, I mean, and I could see where you were in constant, like, sort of rebellion. I mean, going from school to school to school. You're doing a lot of LSD at 14, which most of us waited till at least 20 to do a lot of LSD. I mean, so you had a very crazy upbringing.
I did, but I didn't know it was crazy, and I didn't know she was cold, and I didn't, you know, it wasn't until much later that I found out that she never wanted to really have children. She didn't want to marry my father, you know, all that stuff. And not that that forgives her. She could have bucked up a little bit more on the warmth department, but it's okay. You know, we get on, right?
In the latter part of the book, every single time Lucy calls her, she hangs up on her. And that's essentially, that's what she hangs up the phone. Okay, I'm going to get back to Cat Stevens because I'm obsessed with the story about your obsession. So you're 14 and you do the self-tattoo deal.
Yes.
You're 16 and you decide to set off on a little journey. Where do you go?
So I decide, you know, because I'd been saving myself for him, I wasn't going to make out with any boys or go to first or second or third base or any of that stuff. Absolutely not. So I decided to go to, you know, first to New Haven to see him. And then I learned what his route was going to be in New York City. So I went to New York City and found him.
And how'd you find him exactly?
Well, because I sort of snuggled up next to this roadie named Mickey, who was on Quaaludes all the time, and he ended up being really quite harmless and a little bit charming. And so he told me that he would be going that Steve would be going to JP's after his show. So I didn't go to the show.
Steve, as in Cat Stevens,
yes.
just so people know.
Yeah.
And what was that first encounter like?
Psychotic in a good way. It was surreal. I mean, because I was so young, to be able to process something like that was impossible.
And so you go to a concert, you have a bunch of roses.
Yeah.
And you learn from somebody you met, I think, that he always takes one rose and attaches it to the microphone.
After you stayed up all night long, by the way, to get these great seats at this concert. You were a determined young woman there. I mean, you're freezing to death outside. So you're practically in the front row.
Right. But remember, too, how did I get the roses? My mother told me I had to bring roses, and she drove me to the concert. And so yes, this woman, Carol Hollander was her name. We became friends and stayed friends until she died. She said, you have to bring a rose up. So I'm like, well, what about the thorns? I didn't know anything. They take them off. So I walked up and handed it to him, and he knelt down and took it. And
of course, she's this gorgeous blonde in the front row with hair halfway down her back.
16 years
I'm
old,
sure
though.
he might have noticed that.
A baby. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's finish round one with Cat Stevens, or Steve, as we call him. I mean, as you say in your book, you lost your virginity with Cat Stevens.
Yes.
And I assume you kept seeing him day after day after day after that, correct?
No, Jim.
Exactly.
He didn't even know my name. I left the next morning. I was just,
And that was it for years, right?
That was it for a few years.
Okay, so then you didn't find this guy who is twice your age. You meet him, I think, at the Wander Inn, which is one of the great names of all time. Vermont, is that where that is?
Vermont.
Wander Inn. Okay, you travel around the country. Finally enough, you end up back in Boston. Correct me at any point. And you see an ad. You don't know what you're going to do. You see an ad for exotic dancers. What did you think an exotic dancer was?
I didn't know. I thought maybe somebody from a different country, like Africa or Asia somewhere.
But you like dancing.
But I love to dance. So I thought, well, I don't know what it involves, but can't hurt to go and see what it's about.
And
really.
How did that go?
It was interesting. I met a couple of characters before I arrived at the Ann Diamond Theatrical Agency.
By the way, some of the bit players in this book are the best players
my God.
in the book. These little
Total characters.
But guys, you go to Ann Diamond.
Yeah, and she was just, sitting behind her desk smoking a cigarette. And so, she I think she thought I probably was in the wrong place. But so I auditioned. I wasn't dressed. She had me, she said, well, this is naked dancing. I'm like, well, that's okay. Look naive. And I had on like jeans and a peasant shirt and Birkenstock sandals and no underwear.
It saves time, doesn't it?
Save time.
Yeah.
And she said, where's your outfit? I said, what do you mean? Like, I don't.
Why was it no problem? You said a minute ago it's no problem. She said, take your clothes off. Why was it no problem?
Well, because my father's side of the family, being naked was not a big deal. Like, we had this house up in the woods in Canada, and we would take soapies in the lake, and everybody was naked. And around, fourth grade, I kind of caught on. I'm like, yeah, why do women and girls have to wear shirts? Men don't. Like, it's hot. I don't want to wear a shirt. So I went shirtless while I was up there. And, it just, I don't know. It just never, I thought it was sort of silly to make a big deal about
Let
being
me tell
naked.
you, a lot of women, if they had bodies like yours, wouldn't have felt so bad being naked either. That's part of the thing, Lucy.
Yeah, but I was
gorgeous
young
then.
then.
You were young but gorgeous.
But I didn't think about my body or how I looked, or I didn't look in a mirror. I was just too young, to do that.
But you were naive. I mean, you were
I was
really
very
naive.
naive. I still am.
Well, where'd you get your outfit? Tell us about where you bought your stripping outfit, your first one.
Bloomingdale's.
I
and
love
Chestnut
the
Hill
lingerie. The Chestnut Hill Mall, the scene of where every crime begins.
That's right.
Chestnut Hill Mall.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you? What propelled you from naive, young, Brahmin or waspy kid just trying this out, and you had no problem with it, to becoming the superstar that you were. Marjorie said all around Boston. It wasn't just Boston. I mean, you were like national.
Right.
You were in Playboy and all. So what caused that jump?
I think you guys did. I didn't have anything to do with it. I just went with the flow of the media. And so I when the first article came out about me, I learned more about myself, than I had known
Socialite
before.
Stripper was the first
and I
one,
didn't
right?
even know what the social register was. And so I just sort of went with the flow, and it became more and more and more fun. And
You said, there's a quote here in the book. You say, I don't know who enjoyed the shows more, me or the audience. Why'd you enjoy it so much?
Because I was dancing to music I wanted to dance to, and I had discovered the art of the show and how to put a show together, whether it was thematic with a few little theatrical things maybe, and that was a blast.
And you also talk about how there was the dancing and the stripping. Then there was going to get to sitting with people and getting them to buy you drinks. And there was a dichotomy there that you talked a lot about. Tell us about that.
Well, because to me, initially, that crossed the line into something I really didn't want to do. I didn't really want to talk to strange men. I just wanted to dance. And so when I first started, I was like everybody else. I didn't have any privileges or anything. And so I had to try.
Yeah.
But in the process, I met some really interesting men and continued to over time, while I was there, that it wasn't anything more than what it was slated as. It wasn't like any kind of prostitution or any kind of nasty stuff going on. It was just sitting with someone and having a fake drink.
And who were the men? Cross section?
Huge variety of men. I mean, just a huge variety of men. Really.
Yeah, I assume there were a lot of professional men married. I read about Robert Parker earlier in your career. The great mystery writer would stop by there sometime.
Yeah. And I don't know that I ever saw him again after. I mean, I didn't know who he was, of course. I didn't know really who anybody was. Allen Ginsberg used to stop by, and there were quite a few. Jerzy Kaczynski came in a few times.
Wow.
It was well,
there's another Alan you write about too, Alan Dershowitz.
Oh, who did I say?
Oh, you said Allen Ginsberg.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you didn't mean the poet.
No, I
meant
meant
the lawyer.
Dersh. Yeah,
Dersh. And so what was the Dershowitz deal?
He would always ask really provocative, interesting questions. So I like talking to him. He would say,
Very smart guy.
So do you think you're a feminist? You do? How can you be a feminist doing this? That kind of thing. It was interesting.
And did he ask for you all the time?
No, he would just sit at the bar to keep to himself.
But you did talk about the power of it.
The power, yeah.
Yeah, talk about the power.
So, there were different kinds of power. The first kind of power I experienced was on stage. To have that many rapt eyes watching every move was kind of funny to me at first, really, because I could just make one itty bitty move and it would affect everybody. I'd never experienced that before.
Yeah.
And if somebody was misbehaving, it was just a snap of the fingers and they would be politely asked to leave. And then the more I did it, the more, and the older I got, I realized, I thought, this is empowering as a female to do this because I'm choosing to do this completely. Nobody's choosing it for me. Nobody's telling me what to do. And I am hardly oppressed. And this was an Alan Dershowitz, topic. If I'm objectified, I'm not objectifying myself. That's up to other people. I'm just showing up and doing fun stuff.
Did your employer expect sex was not part of the deal?
No.
Right? You say that but you go out of your way in the book to say it wasn't. Listen to her.
Right? We know.
How'd you get the name Cheyenne?
They gave it to me.
They gave it to you.
Yeah.
No, you were first Lucy for Now.
I was Lucy for Now.
Until they could figure out what it was.
Who's Lucy for Now?
Yeah.
I didn't know about anything.
We're talking to Lucy Wightman. The book, which comes out tomorrow, but you can pre-order it everywhere, is Princess Cheyenne, My Life as Boston's Most Famous Stripper, and it is terrific.
We got a very, someone who's read your book already. They said they have loved it. And you got it. We have a text from an MD that used to take care of you in Hanover who says he sends greetings or she sends greetings, says, hope you are well, anonymous on the South Shore. So tell us about the second round.
Before you do that, can we stay there for
Yes.
1 second? There are a lot of young people listening who probably never even heard the term combat zone.
Sure.
What was the combat zone like? What was the naked eye like? What was it like down there in downtown Crossing?
Well, the combat zone, for people that don't know, was a sort of demarcated adult entertainment district where it was legal to have peep shows and strip clubs, etc. And it was also a place where prostitutes gathered because there was good business there. I don't know a ton about the combat zone because I was in the naked eye bubble, and that's what the naked eye was. It was a bubble. It was very protective for me. And I know there are a lot of women, a lot of strippers that had terrible experiences, and I don't want my experience to say to anybody, oh, this is what everybody's experience was, because it wasn't.
Oh, I think your experience is quite unusual.
Yes, it is.
Because I did a lot of stories about the combat zone, and I remember there's that Good Time Charlie's that was down the street, and what you see there is strippers that would walk across the runway, and then they go down and they stick 50 cents in the jukebox, and no one was paying attention to them. It was really dreary and awful. And there were the peep shows, and there were the dirty bookstores, and it was scary to walk through there if you were a woman, even during the day. I think it was a tough.
It was. That's why I rode my bike to work.
Have you told the story in the air where your editor at the Herald told you to go to the bookstore and write down every title in the whole place?
That was a different dirty bookstore.
Okay.
That was in Stoughton.
Was okay.
A little safer,
but
maybe.
I spent a lot of time at the Herald going to dirty bookstores. Part of my assignment.
That's why I always liked you
Lucy
so much.
Wightman, as Marjorie, as we got into a minute ago, this 16-year-old kid decides, with her mother driving her, to go see Cat Stevens. We know what happened that particular time. You're pretty famous. You're very famous at this time, and you all of a sudden, well, you were. I mean, it is what you were, and you decide to take a break and go to London. Where'd the impulse come from?
Well, because I was still obsessed with Cat Stevens, who had, at this point, changed his name to Yusuf Islam. He had converted to Islam.
Even though you'd never talked to him or seen him since that night?
No. And when I saw him again, he didn't remember me, of course. And I was still obsessed, and I now had the money. So I thought, well, let me just go see what this is about and wrap this up. Basically, was my thought, because it stuck with me. That experience stuck with me. It was almost traumatizing, but in a good way. If that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, I get it.
You know, it was such a novel experience, and I couldn't share it with other people because nobody had a similar experience. So it was kind of odd in that way. And then therein lies the story of the rest of my life, right? But so the management office address was right on the back of the albums. So, 27 Curzon Street. So I went to London and got a room at the Ritz because I didn't know where else to stay.
And you were making good money as a stripper, too.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. But remember, we didn't take tips, so it was just what we got paid to dance. And, I called the office and said I, was in town to see Yusuf. And so the woman, Nikki, said, well, come by tomorrow. And I did. And he was not there. His brother, David, was there. And so I went back the next day. And that's when
Yeah, you don't have to give that all away.
Yeah.
I mean, and we can give the outlines. You should read it, but you essentially become engaged.
Yes.
And ready to marry. You convert.
Yes.
And then read the rest of the story.
Hold on. One of my favorite parts of the book is you're going with him to the mosque and he's giving you all of the instructions. You wash with the right hand for 30 seconds, the left hand for 30 seconds. The feet. Tell us about the instructions.
Well, it's very confusing.
Very confusing, yeah.
It's called wudu. It's, sort of cleaning yourself before you go to prayer.
WUDU.
Yes,
okay.
Correct. And it's super involved. 3 times this, left, right, ears, feet, toes. You can't pass gas or poop afterwards, or you have to do it all over again.
Yeah. You're trying to keep this all straight.
Yes, it was very
It's the same
confusing.
rule on the radio. I don't know if
Same
you're aware.
rules
We
on
have
the
the same.
radio.
We have
That's
wudu
right.
thing
That's
too.
right, yeah.
I probably shouldn't say. I'll upset some people. And I don't want. I'm trying to think what I don't want to give away. And after that, you did a ton of things. You had a sex advice thing, competing with Dr. Ruth on BCN.
Yes.
You did a Playboy thing.
Yes.
You became a bodybuilding champion or
That was kind of later. Yeah.
Whatever. I mean,
yeah.
so you did a ton of things.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I even danced on the Harvard Lampoon table.
You did?
You did?
How'd that come about?
I guess fine. I barely remember it, but I think it was fun.
Yeah.
And you also you describe Cat Stevens or Yusuf or Steve or whoever the hell he is essentially as humorless. And you go from him to arguably one of the funniest people on the planet. And the thing I love most, and again, you should read this about her relationship with Andy Kaufman, which is pretty intense.
Yeah.
The thing I love most about this, talk about your strange meetings with Cat Stevens.
This was stranger.
You meet this guy and...
Way stranger.
Explain who the persona was. Who were you meeting?
He came into the Naked Eye. I didn't know any television personalities at night because I worked, and so he came in asking for princess. He because he didn't speak English. I say that with quotes, but I didn't know better. So he came in 5 nights in a row. And we basically played charades, and he was super annoying. I'll just say. So on the 5th night, a bunch of people got together, customers, dancers, surrounded the table and said, "You're Andy Kaufman," and he stood up. And his eyes were so big, and he was so nervous, and I felt I needed to protect him. And I said, "Stop, get away from him." And they walked away saying, "Oh, that's not Andy." So I agreed to meet him for lunch, one and only times I ever did that. When we went to the 7th Inn, which was a macrobiotic restaurant, and I walk in, he stands up, and he goes, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "Excuse me?"
Because he was in character all the other times, right?
I didn't know that I didn't think he spoke any English.
It's his character from the show Taxi again for very...
it wasn't even. It was some other...
was?
Yeah, no, it wasn't Latka in the squeaky
But he
voice.
never left character until you met him at the restaurant?
No.
You know what I wonder? So it's 2025. Everybody's got, we're online. You can get all this, anything you want online. What is the business of being a dancer stripping today like? Is it even exist?
I don't honestly know.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you. I mean, the last I knew, it was a lot of contact and lap dancing. All right, ready? Ugh. Okay.
Yeah.
That's just,
Yeah.
But I don't know where it's at now.
I think a lot of places have shut down.
Probably.
There was a famous banana, what was it called?
The golden banana.
She has a golden banana connection, too.
Yes.
That shut down,
Did
right?
it? I don't know.
So.
Marjorie took me there. Remember that woman
there was a murder.
stoned to
There was
death?
a murder of a woman.
I was too scared to go to the bathroom by myself.
Yeah, I was too scared to go to the
do you
bathroom.
regret any of this?
No.
You really don't, do
None
you?
of it.
I knew that was the answer.
Yeah, no.
And before we, while you're here, I just want to, we met you years ago on another station, and one of the wonderful moments is we got to meet your kid, Tori, who's just this wonderful young explosion of energy, and in a horrible situation. She died in a car crash not long after we had met. But can you talk about her for 2 seconds? I know it's not in the book, but she was...
Yeah, she was, I mean, well, like our children, right? She was my baby girl. And gosh, I remember meeting a couple of different mothers who had lost children, and saying to myself, I can't even imagine. But then I had to imagine, and it changed me completely. It changed every cell in my body.
Only child, Lucy Wightman, only child Tori.
We were talking about you in the context of you're talking to your daughter, who was then, I think, 16.
16, yeah.
about your career and what you've done, and how a mother explains that to her teenage daughter, which was not easy.
It was not easy. And she was ready, to sort of process that. And she was just, getting ready to launch herself,
When you say explain it to your kid, I remember in the book when you explain to your mother what you're doing, her line is something like, okay, from strippers to burkas. There's something wrong with you, Lucy,
and nobody wants to see you naked. Don't be ridiculous.
I know. I tell you, you triumphed over a mother that was not very helpful. Let's put it that way.
Why'd you write this book, Lucy?
Well, it's been, in my head for a long time. When I was in my mid-20s, Ike Williams, who's an intellectual property lawyer.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Yeah, he approached me and asked me to write a book. And, of course, I had no business writing a book because I was very self-absorbed, and I'm so glad it didn't get published. So he did sell the rights, though, to Warner Brothers, and I think they kept the rights for 5 years or something like that. So it was always in my mind. And I always wanted to do it, but I found it hard to have the discipline required until I got long COVID, and then all I was doing was sitting around.
I hope you're feeling better.
Oh, I feel much better now. But that really served me because I wasn't, I would just sit there.
By the way, for those who, obviously almost all of you haven't read, brilliant storytelling, some great local characters, some of whom you'll know, some of whom you won't know. And it's also really funny. I mean, you are really, in addition to everything else, you are really funny. It's
Thank
fabulous.
you,
It moves really quickly. Both of us loved it, and we really urge people to buy it. Princess Cheyenne, My Life is Boston's Most Famous Stripper.
Yeah, we have a lot of texts here from fans who know about you or saw you down at the Naked Eye many years ago. Thank you so much.
Well, before you go and read, Zoe, our coworker, sent us a note that I didn't see, quoting you from 10 minutes ago. I didn't want to talk to any strange men. I just wanted to dance. Zoe wrote a universal thought for most women, which I think is a great
good
line.
One, Zoe.
Lucy, we love seeing you.
Thank you guys.
Yeah,
so
congratulations. Congratulations. We've been speaking with Lucy Wightman, whose memoir, Princess Cheyenne, My Life as Boston's Most Famous Stripper, is out this week.
Tomorrow.
That's right, tomorrow.
Happy
Detailing
birthday
life
on
in Boston's
Wednesday.
combat
Thank you,
zone.
Jim.
And a great story about your life, a great story about growing up. You, Cat Stevens, dancing in the combat zone, description of the zone. It's great. You really did a great job. Just heard our June conversation with Lucy Wightman. Her new memoir is Princess Cheyenne, My Life as Boston's Most Famous Stripper. Coming up after this quick break, it is time for our Two More Things segment. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
In Brazil, factories are breeding one of the most reviled creatures known to humans, mosquitoes. Not your average mosquitoes, but ones that have been engineered to stop the spread of dengue.
Evidence to date suggests it is going to be a very effective solution.
I'm Juana Summers. How millions of mosquitoes could save millions of Brazilians from disease on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority, helping families overcome the college planning stress. Committed to providing trusted guidance with calculators, step-by-step videos, and more. Details at mefa.org. And Subaru of New England, the all-wheel drive 2025 Subaru Crosstrek, is committed to keeping your loved ones safe on adventures this summer. Subaru retailer locations at subaruofnewengland.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, streaming at youtube.com/GBH. As we really screwed up the time, our apologies. So Two More Things is one more thing. You want to go or should I go?
No, you go ahead.
Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have talked a lot with and about bar advocates in recent shows. So those are the private lawyers who volunteer to represent indigent defendants. We've been talking to them since they've been involved in a work stoppage, and they're in a work stoppage in response to grossly inadequate compensation. They requested hourly increases, ones which, by the way, would still leave them way behind their colleagues in neighboring. The legislature completely ignored their needs, leading to the release by judges of defendants whose constitutional rights were being violated because they didn't have a lawyer. So, in yesterday's offer from the legislature, they agreed to give $10 an hour extra in year one, $10 an hour in year two. I did the math. Even with those two increases, Marjorie, added to their current $65 an hour rate, the bar advocates would still be $65 an hour behind their colleagues in Maine, $40 behind their colleagues in New Hampshire, $27 behind their colleagues in Rhode Island. The legislature would also make any future work stoppage illegal. Now, as someone who has great respect for lawyers who choose to help honor the constitutional obligation to indigent defendants, I would say this offer is pathetic. So pathetic that I've been told that many bar advocates who've spent years, if not decades, representing poor people who are charged with crimes intend to say, no more, I'm not doing this anymore. Now, at the same time that the legislature is offering them pennies, the same legislature was able to find $360 million to rehab the women's prison in Framingham, by the way, in the Senate President's District. Now, some say it's necessary, and it very well may be. Some say we should be incarcerating fewer women, which would solve the problem. Regardless, that money, that $360 million was found. If we can find money to build better prisons, we can clearly find money for fair compensation of these bar advocates immediately. The offer is pathetic.
It's pathetic. And even though most of the people that are getting let out have been charged with misdemeanors, some of them have been charged with very violent things like domestic violence. So people are left high and dry.
And I want to say one more thing. If the bar advocates got everything they wanted, not only would they still be way behind their colleagues in other states, they'd be way, way behind what they get to represent private sector defendants. So this, at least from my perspective, doesn't cut it.
Another home run by our state legislature.
I would say you're right.
I would say, okay, coming up after the new news, we're going to talk with director James Jacoby. He joins us to talk about his latest film for Frontline, Remaking the Middle East, Israel versus Iran. He joins us next. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You are listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The Middle East versus Israel versus Iran. That's next.
The news and reporting you hear on GBH is made possible by the listeners who trust the GBH newsroom to deliver fact-based news and information every day. Support the journalism you trust. Pitch in online at gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Cornerstone at Canton, an assisted living community with services designed to help seniors age in place, offering respite and trial stay options to help during recovery or when exploring new living arrangements. More at cornerstonecanton.com. And M&M Skylights, installing and servicing the full range of commercial and residential V-Lock skylight products. More information about their installation process and consultations can be scheduled at mmskylights.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browder, head on Hour 3 of BPR. Frontline's James Jacoby is out with a new film about Israel and Iran, how the American bombing campaign came to be, at reshaping in the Middle East, and the war in Gaza.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then we'll take your calls on Am I the A-Hole Day? A coastal mother has a rule for her teen daughter. She can't enjoy the lobster if she doesn't put them in the boiling water herself. The daughter thinks her mom is being a cruel jerk. The mom just wants her kid to grow up and take responsibility for understanding how food is made. Who's in the right? Call or text BPR on 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Louise Schiavone. U.S. trade relations with Mexico remain somewhat up in the air as President Trump announced today that in their case he is extending tomorrow's tariffs deadline by 90 days. The rate will sit at 25% until issues between the two nations are resolved. The president has set tomorrow as a deadline for tariff decisions involving dozens of countries. As NPR's Scott Horsley reports, the idea has been to boost U.S. prosperity by leveling the field in international tariffs. But how this is playing out remains to be seen, as the chairman of the Federal Reserve has noted.
Chairman Jerome Powell noted yesterday that the government is collecting around $30 billion a month in tariffs. That money has to come from somebody. Powell says so far it doesn't look as if foreign companies are picking up much of the tab. Instead, it's mostly being paid by U.S. importers, retailers, and, in some cases, consumers.
NPR's Scott Horsley. Multiple national security officials who previously served under President Biden have recently been ousted from government or had job offers rescinded. NPR's Jenna McLaughlin reports those moves often follow social media outcry from far-right activists.
While it's not uncommon for presidents to clean house and appoint their own advisors across government agencies, the Trump White House may have taken that tradition to a new level. In recent months, top national security officials have been pushed out of senior government roles. Many don't have a political background and have served under Democratic and Republican administrations. That includes April Doss, who spent over a decade serving at the National Security Agency, most recently as its top lawyer, and Jen Easterly, the former head of DHS's cyber agency, who had a West Point job offer rescinded. Right-wing political activist Laura Loomer had pushed for both removals, leading observers to believe she wields influence over the White House. Jenna McLaughlin, NPR News.
Russia launched a combined air attack on Ukraine, targeting the capital. NPR's Hanna Polymarenko reports from Kyiv that, according to local authorities, at least 11 people were killed and more than 93 others were wounded.
The Ukrainian State Emergency Service posted a video of a rescue operation in one of Kyiv's districts, in which a wounded man is being pulled out of the rubble. Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko says there were 54 apartments in the part of the building that was destroyed. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called the attack, quote, vile and specially calculated to overwhelm the air defense. He wrote that it was Russia's response to the desire of Ukraine, America, and Europe for peace. Zelensky also called on Ukraine's allies to make efforts to bring Russia to the negotiation table. Hanna Polymarenko, NPR News, Kyiv.
On Wall Street at this hour, the Dow down 26 points, the Nasdaq up 203. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Brown University defending its deal announced Wednesday with the Trump administration, saying it will not compromise academic freedom or the school's autonomy. From our higher ed desk, GBH's Kirk Carapezza reports that, like Columbia, Brown has agreed to let the government monitor its admissions and hiring data.
Unlike Columbia, which agreed to pay more than $220 million to the U.S. Treasury, Brown will put $50 million toward workforce programs in Rhode Island over the next decade. In a statement, Brown President Christina Paxson says that lines up with the school's mission to serve the local community. Brown was among the Ivy League schools hit with a large-scale freeze on federal research dollars, part of the fallout from how campuses responded to anti-Semitism complaints during Gaza-related protests. This comes amid reports that Harvard may be open to a significant financial settlement to have its federal funding restored. Kirk Carapezza, GBH News.
A popular Italian restaurant in Boston's Beacon Hill getting ready to close up shop for good. Grotto had just celebrated 22 years in business, and in a web post on the restaurant's Instagram page, owner Scott Herrett says the restaurant's lease is up in September. While an exact closing date has yet to be set, Herrett says Grotto will continue to serve dinner every night of the week from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. until the restaurant closes. It's located at 37 Bowdoin Street. Meanwhile, Ken Casey, the Dropkick Murphys, has announced that he's opening a Mexican restaurant in Providence. 75 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One, offering their premium travel card, Venture X. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're going to be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow with 70s heartthrob John Davison. He's still pretty
70s and 80s heartthrob.
He's still
John
pretty
Davison.
heartthrobby, I would say, in his older years. And our media maven Sue O'Connell, plus Meredith Goldstein, who writes the Love Letters column and does the podcast for the Boston Globe. Hello again, Jim.
Hey there, Marjorie. So Frontline's out with a film about Israel's 12-day war with Iran, how the American bombing campaign came to be, the war in Gaza, and how it's all shifting the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East. I know most interesting to Marjorie and me, they detail U.S. involvement in all of this through Obama, Trump, Biden, and then Trump again. And the backdrop is Netanyahu's years-long campaign to stop Iran's nuclear ambitions. In this clip, you'll hear Netanyahu first, then former U.S. ambassador to Israel recalled his relentless, meaning the prime minister's relentless focus on Iran.
And this is why I ask you to continue to send an unequivocal message that America will never permit Iran to develop nuclear weapons.
I don't think I had a single meeting with the Prime Minister where he didn't raise his concerns about Iran, and certainly the fact that Iran was pursuing a nuclear program that might enable it to have a nuclear weapon. He was single-mindedly focused on that, and he would never let me forget it. that was his number one priority.
We're joined now by director James Jacoby. His Frontline documentary is called Remaking the Middle East, Israel versus Iran. It's available to watch now on pbs.org. James, congratulations. Great to see you again.
Great to see you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us. And once again, all the players, they're all in there. You get the best interviews. But just expand a little bit on what Jim said, James. What this documentary, the scope of this documentary, what you've done.
The scope is big. I mean, the scope is big. It was a tough one. I mean, obviously the Middle East is kind of quicksand when it comes to all issues, and we really tried to be as comprehensive as possible in this one. I mean, the impetus in part was obviously there has been a direct war now between Israel and Iran, and that is a seismic shift in that region. And the idea was to kind of trace back those hostilities, to understand the roots of this conflict, to situate October 7th and what happened there in this story, and obviously to understand Israel's reaction since October 7th. Hamas, of course, having perpetuated the October 7th attack, being an Iran-backed group. So really the task was enormous, and that's why it's a 2-hour film, to kind of trace back Israel via Iran, but all of its proxies as well, and to also try to understand and grapple with what's happened in Gaza.
Could you do a 60-second tutorial on those proxies, on these Iran-backed groups, who they are and what direction they're coming from? Is that a doable task there, James?
I'll do my best, Jim. I mean, from the 1979 Iranian Revolution forward, the 79 revolution was obviously the Iranian revolutionaries overthrew the Shah, who had been backed by the U.S., had friendly ties and alliances with Israel, and this Islamic revolution, also with communist ideology, overthrew that government, that monarchy, which had been very repressive, and installed this new revolutionary fervor in Iran. And a big part of that was based around Israel and seeing Israel as an illegitimate occupier of Palestinian land in the Middle East. And so from the very beginning, Iran situated itself as anti-Israel, as anti-Zionist, as against the Western, what they saw as an imperialistic project to put Israel in that territory. And so they have supported groups ever since, including Hezbollah, a Shia militia in Lebanon, to fight against Israel. Hamas, which is Sunni. Interestingly enough, Iran is a Shia state, not Sunni state. They supported Hamas in Gaza in the south, which has since the 1990s been against the two-state solution, against the peace process. And they've also supported groups in Yemen, the Houthis, Iraqi Shia militias, and also propped up the Assad regime in Syria. So they've really had this regional strategy to try to isolate Israel, fight against American and Israeli interests in the region, and ultimately, as they say in the film, Iranian officials, to fight.
That was an excellent primer, by the way. It was a little more than 60 seconds, but you did a spectacular job, James, I should say. Right. You know what I thought would be interesting? I mentioned that Marjorie and I were captivated by how much we learned and how you trace the history of the United States. Can we start and just go in chronological order? I think most people know, obviously, the deal was cut. The Iranian deal was cut by Obama, but this comes after Netanyahu wanted him to be part of this bombing, and Obama wasn't having any of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, we started the film basically in 2011, 2012. This is after Iran had dug what has now been bombed, this Fordo facility, 80 meters beneath a mountain to enrich uranium and work on their nuclear program. And Netanyahu has been gunning to bomb Iran's nuclear program since it began, some might say even before it began. Mm-hmm. And has tried to get the United States involved in that. And the Obama administration took the tack of, we think that diplomacy is better than warfare, and they started direct negotiations with the Iranians, and it turned into the Obama nuclear deal.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what about that deal? It was, obviously not perfect. Lots of people criticized it, but it did seem to. You tell me, was it keeping them further away from being ready with a nuclear bomb than they are now, or wasn't it?
I mean, it was unequivocally yes. The deal was quite specific to their nuclear program, to the enrichment of uranium, which has become the big issue, and it kept their uranium enrichment at a very low level. It enabled them to continue to keep their infrastructure, and to enrich uranium, but to a very low level. And so the deal was successful in that respect, and Iran did comply with that deal as long as it was in effect. The deal, as you said, was flawed in other respects, but when it came to their nuclear program, the aim was to keep them from breaking out to the point of being able to weaponize, to build a bomb, and to keep them about a year away from that, if they ever chose to go for it.
So when Trump came in for the first time, then why, besides just not liking Obama, why did he get out of the deal?
Well, they saw it as a very imperfect deal, and I think they hoped, and the Trump officials from the first administration that did speak to us thought that if they applied enough pressure on Iran, they could do a better deal and get a better deal than Obama got. One that would involve their regional activities, like the proxies they supported. One that would involve their ballistic missiles program, which continued to grow. One that would not have sunset clauses or expiration dates on a deal. They thought they could do a better deal than Obama did. That obviously never happened.
So I think everybody listening knows, no matter what level of understanding of the Middle East they have, is Netanyahu's preference between a Biden and a Trump would be a Trump every day of the week. How much was the Biden administration in the loop during those 4 years of what Israel's game plan was for addressing their threats?
I mean, it's interesting you say that, Jim, because yes, Netanyahu's preference any day of the week would be Trump. But I mean, the Biden administration, on any measure, was extraordinarily supportive of Israel. And we spoke to Jake Sullivan, his national security advisor, Brett McGurk, who was in charge of the Middle East portfolio for him. And there was very little daylight between the Israelis and Americans during the Biden administration. And as we know, the Biden administration was publicly very supportive of Israel throughout the period after October 7th. So, what Biden did hope to do with Iran was to try to get them back to the negotiating table to try to revive the Obama deal, but that didn't go very far.
Correct me if I'm wrong. First of all, the interviews with Jake Sullivan I thought were terrific.
Great.
Understanding of things. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't you ask him at one point if the Biden administration considered withholding weaponry in some fashion? And if you did, what did he say to you?
I asked him basically whether to respond to those who would say that the Biden administration or the United States of America, presumably the superpower in this relationship, did everything it could to avert a catastrophe in Gaza. And he answered it by saying, well, what most people were calling for was for us to withhold weapons shipments. And we decided not to do that because Israel was not just fighting Hamas in Gaza. It was fighting Hezbollah, it was fighting Iran, it was fighting other militias in the region, and the United States was going to back Israel, full-fledged back Israel.
Did you get any sense that he thought, in retrospect, that was a mistake, or no?
No. No, I don't think he thought that was a mistake. I think that they're all quite sensitive to the fact that Gaza has been so catastrophic, but I think that they look back on those decisions as thinking they made a very difficult calculation, which is that had they shown daylight, meaning the Biden administration, had they shown daylight with the Israelis, then that would have emboldened Israel's enemies to go further.
We're talking to James Jacoby, the director of Frontline's latest, Remaking the Middle East, Israel versus Iran.
So let's go to the President Trump's return, Trump 2, and the relationship with Netanyahu. Tell us what you talked about there.
Well, what was so interesting about that period of time is by the time Trump took office again, that the entire kind of chessboard, for lack of a better term, was changed up. I mean, Hezbollah was decimated, Hamas was basically decimated, Iran and Israel had already traded fire, and Israel had inflicted some devastating blows on Iran and its defenses. And essentially, Israel had already cleared the path to attack Iran directly, to send its aircraft into Iranian airspace. And so what what Netanyahu had hoped was that he was going to find a President Trump who was just going to give him the green light right away to go attack Iran's nuclear facilities. Instead, Trump said, I want to negotiate. Let's see if we can get a deal.
No, let me tell you, the best scene, exactly, the best scene in the whole movie was the camera does a close-up here. Well, James, you should describe, I shouldn't describe it.
It was great.
Netanyahu is doing what any skillful foreign leader does. The head of the Prime Minister of the UK does it quite well. Is you fawn all over Donald Trump in the Oval Office, and you expect you'll get the returns you want. Netanyahu didn't get that when Trump said, I want to negotiate. Describe the next scene in your documentary there, James.
This was in the Oval Office. It's something that Trump likes to do these days with world leaders, is to kind of have these extemporaneous moments with world leaders where the press gets to ask questions, and sometimes Trump will take the things in a surprising direction. In this case, it was in April, and Netanyahu is taken by surprise in this press conference in the Oval Office by the fact that Donald Trump has said, well, no, I want to negotiate with the Iranians. I mean, Netanyahu really did believe that Trump was going to kind of give a green light to attack Iran's nuclear programs. And here he's saying in broad daylight to the international press, no, I'm actually going to open up engagement again with the Iranians. And we have David Sanger from the New York Times sort of describe Netanyahu's reaction to it, which is extraordinary when you watch it on film. I mean, it's just
I had to rewind. I had to rewind.
We do a close-up on Netanyahu's face.
And he's just, you can tell he's thinking, oh, my God, but he can't say anything because he's right there in the room with all the reporters.
It's extraordinary, and the discomfort is palpable, and you can see how upset he is, and yet we all know how things played out.
Well, let's stay with that for a second. I don't want to read too much into this, but it seemed to me that when Donald Trump said we're going to try to negotiate, and he did try to negotiate, the takeaway that I had, please tell me if I was reading too much into it, was the moment at which Trump decided that negotiations were not a good idea is when the press started saying he apparently is moving, he being Trump, is moving in the direction of doing Obama the sequel in terms of the agreement. Is that a fair conclusion or no?
Well, I'm loath to draw conclusions because actually no one from the Trump administration talked to us. We got to speak to former Trump officials from the first administration, senior level Iranians, Palestinians, Israelis, all spoke to us. Yet conspicuously, the current Trump administration, didn't speak. And I would have liked to have asked about their internal timeline.
Hold on for a second, James. Is that unusual for you? Because Frontline usually gets everybody because you're so esteemed. Is that unusual to have the administration shut you down?
I mean, it's unusual. Yeah, I'd say it's unusual. Okay. And I think it's unfortunate because obviously this was something that we thought the administration would be interested in talking to us about. This has been, a massive operation. They take credit for having changed the equation in the Middle East.
Very good point.
But they did not want to talk to us. Okay. And so, considering that fact, yes, I would say that, there was an earnest negotiation by the Iranians and the Trump administration. But what happened was Steve Witkoff, the envoy, had come to a kind of conclusion, it seems, that maybe those terms of the nuclear deal that Obama had struck were really the most reasonable terms you could get in this negotiation. And then when as David Sanger again from the New York Times starts describing, well, Trump doesn't want headlines along those lines that Trump's going to agree to the same terms as the Obama nuclear deal and not get anything better. So that may have tempted him to put some red lines in the deal that everyone knew were a no-go for the Iranians.
And then talk about what happened when the Israelis did go in after Iran. And by the way, the scenes of that and the jets taking off and that whole thing, it was so dramatic. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Trump had given a 60-day deadline for these negotiations. And as we all know, sometimes Trump takes these deadlines very seriously, sometimes he doesn't. But in this case, the Israelis took that deadline seriously. And on basically day 61, they launched this operation. It's still unclear with what sort of a green light, yellow light from the Trump administration the Israelis got, but they did go ahead and start a massive attack on Iran. As I said earlier, Iran's defenses were down from previous attacks. And so the Israelis essentially had full control over Iranian airspace, and they went after both targeted attacks on Iran's senior military officials, on their scientists that were in the nuclear program. They inflicted massive damage across the country on the nuclear facilities, and did so for about 12 days, 2 weeks or so.
And then Trump took action himself, even though there was fear, which turned out, to Trump's credit,
we don't know.
Tell me, but the fears that this was all going to start World War III that we kept hearing during this interim period, well, it hasn't started yet, thank goodness. But after that attack that was so praised as being this brilliant
total obliteration.
Yeah, well, that's before the total obliteration.
You mean Israel's attack?
Yes, Israel's attack was brilliant militarily, et cetera, like that. Then Trump got involved with the United States military.
That's correct. And again, I wish I could have interviewed the Trump administration officials about the decision to do that. But from what we know from our sources and others, they had seen the success of the Israeli attack. The president likes to be involved in a success. And when he saw that Israel was making tremendous headway here, he and his national security team decided that this was the time to actually try to deliver the sort of fatal blow to Iran's nuclear ambitions and use these bunker-busting bombs that only the United States has and drops from its B-2 bombers on the underground nuclear facilities.
James, can I spend a minute or two in our final minutes with you asking you about your next documentary about the Middle East? Is what we have seen, the images we've seen of starvation coming out of Gaza, Donald Trump saying the other day, again, one of those Oval Office meetings, I can't remember with whom he was sitting, saying we're going to open food centers, whatever that means. I don't know when that's happening or what exactly that will be. Is this moment likely to change the whole dynamic in the Israel-Hamas situation in your estimation?
I'm not sure what's going to change here in terms of, the Trump administration has made it very clear that they really do support what the Netanyahu government is doing when it comes to Gaza and certainly the West Bank as well. It's difficult to tell whether the international uproar over what's happening in Gaza right now, the starvation and hunger crisis, the killing of civilians in food lines, whether that's really going to result in a change of American policy. I've seen no indication of that. I think that the president has come out and but in order for something to be done, there needs to be a discussion about what is the post-war plan in Gaza. And as the film talks about, Israelis have yet to actually articulate what the post-war plan is for Gaza. And until anyone articulates that, then I don't see this conflict coming to a close anytime soon.
But in terms of the post-war plan, well, obviously Israel's got to be a party to this. One final question about what impact it will have. A growing number of Western allies of Israel, obviously not the United States, most recently Canada and the UK, say they will recognize a Palestinian state if there's not some resolution. I don't quite understand the if there's not some. There's either recognition or there isn't. Does that, I'll use the term threat for lack of a better expression, from traditional Israeli allies have potential to move Netanyahu or no?
I sincerely doubt it, and it doesn't seem to have moved the U.S. administration either. I mean, when the president was asked about President Macron in France recognizing the Palestinian state, his answer was to say it doesn't matter what he says, which is quite something for a U.S. president to say about one of our chief allies. But the fact of the matter is it will come down probably to the Security Council and the UN, and whether the United States vetoes in the end any recognition of the Palestinian state.
By the way, let me say what we say to you almost every time. Not only is your film terrific, but I think I speak for Marjorie. In situations where we think we know a lot, we end up learning so much more from your work. And that's one of the reasons we'll urge everybody listening to make sure they see it. It's really terrific and important. And thank you, James.
Thank you guys so much, and keep up the good work.
It's good to see you.
You too.
Be well.
Needless to say,
Thanks,
thank you very much for being with us. We've been speaking with James Jacoby. His latest for Frontline is called Remaking the Middle East, Israel versus Iran. It is available to watch now on pbs.org. That's just go to the website, pbs.org. Look for Remaking the Middle East, Israel versus Iran in the Frontline series. Okay, coming up after this quick break, we're going to open the lines to get your thoughts on one mother who insists her teenager boil the lobster she wants to eat. This is another who is the a-hole thing here, which I'm embarrassed that James Jacoby is hearing. Maybe he's gone by now. Okay. What are your thoughts on making your kid do the dirty work for a good meal?
It's always like that.
Is it a good parenting lesson, or is mom being too harsh? Weigh in next. Our number is 877-301-8970. Is it the mom being the jerk basically for telling her kid she can't have any of the lobster if she's not willing to kill it before she eats it? I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
In Brazil, factories are breeding one of the most reviled creatures known to humans, mosquitoes. Not your average mosquitoes, but ones that have been engineered to stop the spread of dengue.
Evidence to date suggests it is going to be a very effective solution.
I'm Juana Summers. How millions of mosquitoes could save millions of Brazilians from disease on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Peabody Essex Museum, presenting Knowing Nature, Stories of the Boreal Forest. Captivating photos and interactive displays take visitors inside a vast wilderness. On view this summer. PEM.org. And Creative Playthings, open for the Massachusetts sales tax holiday August 9th and 10th. Committed to supporting kids' outdoor active play this summer. Offering swing sets, trampolines, basketball hoops, and more. CreativePlaythings.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Jim Browdy and Marjorie. You can stream at youtube.com/GBH News. Live at the library tomorrow. Press play. John Davidson's going to sing and talk. Meredith Goldstein and more. The reason I'm laughing is that almost every week when we do Am I the A-hole on Thursday, the prior segment is about one, like an existential issue.
I'm always
the
the
Middle
one
East, whatever it is.
that has
you
to
have
read
do
it like a real fool.
In any case, that's why
okay.
You're here. In any case, it is time for Am I the A-hole? You know the deal by now. We pick a real-life issue, at least we think it's real life, from Reddit or some other dumpster on the internet and present it to you. Today's dilemma involves a family living on the East Coast, that's where we are if you don't know, who eats a fair amount of lobster. Like one of us is a big lobster fan, the other is not. And by the way, the one who is not a lobster fan, Marjorie, is not about principle. She just doesn't like the taste. Is that correct, Marjorie?
That is correct.
Thank you. The daughter in this family has just turned 15, and she's been stepping up in the kitchen, helping with meals. Recently, her mother has been trying to get her to help prepare the lobsters, which, of course, in most cases involves dropping a live lobster into a pot of boiling water. Thank you. That's very helpful. That was, I assume,
I like
boiling
that,
water.
actually.
Thank
There
you.
it is.
Exactly. The daughter just wants to enjoy the lobsters as she always has, cracking them open and eating the meat after they've been killed and cooked. But the mother, Marjorie, objects, and she sets a new rule. Unless the 15-year-old daughter is willing to drop the crustacean into a pot of boiling water, no lobster for her. What do you think? Is the mom the a-hole for insisting her daughter kill the lobster she enjoys eating? You know, it's not as if the mother insists on taking the family to a slaughterhouse every time they have a hamburger, so why is she insisting on the lobster cruelty lesson? Or is the daughter being a bit of an a-hole for trying to live in a fantasy world where you can eat fresh lobster without confronting the fact that you have to kill it at home unless Market Basket boils it for you when you buy it at the place? 877-301-8970. Who's the a-hole? The mother demanding the daughter participate in the execution if she wants to eat it, or the daughter who says, I just want to eat it. I don't want to know about anything else. What's your answer, Marjorie?
Well, you know, you're the one that kills all the lobsters, and so why don't you say who the a-hole is?
I'm not going to do that right now because I want you to go first so that I can humiliate you. Is
the mother.
Is why?
Because, as you said, is she making them go to the slaughterhouse to look at the hamburgers? Is she sending them out to the meat packing place? How about pigs? Does she not, bacon? A lot of people eat bacon. I must admit, I eat bacon.
Oh, you do?
I mean, this is why the vegetarians have the moral.
They do. They're going to call.
Because they're not doing any of this stuff. They're eating a lot of plants and beans and stuff like that. But that's the problem. If she sounds like a little bit of okay. You can't eat the lobster if you don't kill it.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Well, by the way, you'll be surprised. I believe the daughter is the a-hole. And the reason is,
really?
Unlike what I just said, I did take both of my daughters to the slaughterhouse before they had a cheeseburger. No, right. The mother is the a-hole. There's no question. But by the way, in all fairness.
Did you read about the crustaston?
No, what is a crustaston?
Well, the crustaston is supposed to get you out of this mess if you're upset about it. Now, it is expensive. It costs $3,400.
What's it called? The crustaston?
Crustaston, that's right. What you can do is you can, with the crustaston for $3,400, you can stun the lobster electronically before killing it or cooking it. And it supposedly makes it less horrible for the lobster because the lobster is just kind of stunned and doesn't feel it as much as it does when you just drop it in the boiling water. So that could be the way the escape thing. It doesn't do much for the slaughterhouse, doesn't do much for the pigs and the beef and everything else we eat. But the crustaston is there for $3,400.
Can I make a suggestion? Again, I don't want to tell you what to do because I'm going to sound ungrateful. Instead of sending me like bacon of the month every birthday, got me a crustaston.
Yeah, for $3,400. I don't think so.
Why don't you and the staff, your staff, why don't you contribute and do it?
And the other thing we found out, I was surprised at this too today, doing our extensive research on boiling lobsters, is that they are not monogamous. I thought they were monogamous.
No, I've been saying for years. As a former, a woman I used to know pretty well, I haven't seen her in years. That's what I meant former. I just haven't seen her. Not Harriet Heinemann, who is really smart, who told me, and she doesn't eat lobsters for this reason, they're monogamous. Not only are they not monogamous, we looked this up this morning, male lobsters sometimes mate with 10 women. You don't call women lobsters. Lobsters women, do you? Oops.
I think it's a female lobster.
10 female lobsters in one season. That's not monogamy to me.
Well, you know what else?
What?
In this very story, almost nobody's monogamous in the animal world. Yeah, it's only the prairie vole. You ever seen the prairie vole?
I don't know what it is.
It looks like a little mouse with a lot more hair. It's a rodent. They are the only ones that mate for life. Apparently,
what's that crust thing again?
Crustaston.
Crustaston.
That's the key. That's what you got to do. You got to get the crustaston, and then it'll be all set.
Now, by the way, the other thing, I have to be honest about this because I know I want to get ahead of the criticism. I mean, in some way, I am the one who drops the lobsters into the boiling water.
I don't know how you do it.
And it's on. I'm sure it's not pleasant. But I mean, if you're unless
you boiled to death,
unless you be
not
a vegetarian,
the way most of us want to go.
By the way, what they say, I'm only doing this in the spirit of fairness because I believe in fairness. Because I don't believe they do suffer. I think they die immediately. Apparently, our staff thinks they have sound. Maybe that was it. Of one of the lobsters.
No,
once it was dropped in the water.
The pot.
Yeah,
that's what they do.
That's a reflex. That's a reflex.
How do you know?
It's a reflex. It's a reflex.
They bang against the pot.
By the way, you know what some people do? You know what's even worse? I'm not going to say this. This is going to be disgusting.
Yeah,
people.
don't. Okay, so
they actually have. This is excellent.
Okay.
Other than that phony screaming
we have real
thing,
sound of a
they have real
lobster.
sound of a lobster. This is immediately after, allegedly. This will get to the bottom of the truth here. This is after the lobster is plunged into the boiling water. Well, I mean, here it is. Go ahead. By the way, this is one of the greatest videos ever. This young woman, and her friend, what are they like doing grapes? Or you've seen this? And one of them, they're doing grapes. This is really sad. And one of the women, while she's doing grapes, falls out of the barrel onto the ground, and she's screaming in pain.
Okay.
So that was really cruel.
I missed that one.
Every part of the segment is cruel.
It's very cruel.
And by the way, don't high horse it. Virtually everybody in the audience, except Marjorie, has eaten lobster.
A lot of people don't eat lobster.
It.
Vegetarians don't eat lobster. They have the moral high ground.
Okay, but how many
people? They don't
people
have to go to the slaughterhouse.
What percentage of people are vegetarians?
I have no idea.
Well, I do, Marjorie.
Oh, yeah?
Not many.
They're eating a lot of beans.
They are.
Lentils.
Jamel Bowie's bean recipes. And I made corn fritters the other day. He had a corn fritter recipe.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
They weren't very good, actually.
Yeah, Did you dip them in the syrup?
I took them home.
What'd you think? Horrible?
No.
They're not that good, no. Okay, they're vegetarian. You could have lobster instead. Okay, so the question is, we got off topic as always. Who's the a-hole? Is the a-hole the mother who says, if you want to eat lobster, 15-year-old daughter, you've got to participate in the killing of the lobster, the cooking of the lobster, or is the 15-year-old the a-hole for not willing to face reality that if you want to enjoy a lobster, you have to execute it?
Okay.
What is it?
Mom is giving Joan Crawford a run for her money, and that's a reference to that horrible movie where Joan, Mommy Dearest, where Joan is horrible to her sister. Mommy Dearest is a different one. What's the one where she brings Betty Davis, the rat, on a silver platter and opens it up and serves her a cooked rat?
Okay, so here's an anonymous texter who this is the approach that I would agree. I do not let my kid eat lettuce unless she shoots it herself. That I think is the principal position. Let's get started with Deb in the car. Deb, who is the a-hole? Hi, Deb.
Hi. I think it's the daughter, mainly because she needs to learn where her food comes from.
Yeah.
We had 4 boys, and they raised a pig, and they slaughtered it, and they enjoyed the meat, and they understand fully where their food comes from. And as far as the lobster goes, there are different ways of doing it. One is there is a way to kill it before it goes in the pot.
You can poke
and the other way is in the back of the brain. And the other one is put it in the cool water and bring it to a slow boil, and there is that sensation that they don't know they're being boiled until they're dead.
Boiled. Now, Deb, before you go away, did your sons name the pig
He's like
when
Charlotte's
they're raising
Web.
it or not?
Remember that story, Deb?
I know Charlotte's Web, and they just named it Pig. They just named it Pig.
That's probably the better idea.
How about that other movie, Babe?
Yeah.
Remember Babe?
I
the
love
movie about
Babe.
the pig?
I love Babe.
Yeah.
Deb, thank
So
you.
hold on for a second, Deb.
No, don't go away.
Did they? So they watched it get slaughtered, or one of them slaughtered the pig themselves? I mean, that's tough stuff.
Their dad did it with them. They participated in it, and they were involved in every part of it. Where you have to deal with getting the hair off it. And
That's enough. That's fine. Deb, thank you. This is excellent. Thank you for a fine call. We don't want to hear that. No, we're not criticizing you.
No,
Marjorie's
Deb is
very upset.
she's doing the right thing, showing her children where
Anonymous
the food
says
comes
the caller with the dead pig is the a-hole. She didn't do it. Her kids.
Her husband.
Or husband.
We'll blame her husband.
Right. And by the way, I mean, that is true. I mean, it's not really different. It's a little grosser than the concept behind the lobster thing. Is it, or am I wrong? Thank you.
You're not wrong.
Okay.
Listen to this.
Don't read that first text, by the way, by mistake. Do not read that text.
I'm not.
Okay, thank you.
Mom is mean. My husband did this to our grandson when he was 11. He was so upset. He buried the claw bands and built a headstone out of apples from our tree. Grandson is now 36 and is still mad about it.
Okay, there's a great story,
There
which
you
I
go.
forgot about till just now. There used to be something called the Inside Track
Yep.
in the Herald when Marjorie
that
worked
was
there,
great, yeah.
which was the most read section of any newspaper
It was
in the
great.
history of the
Yep.
world.
Yep.
Gail Fee and
Gail Fee, Laura Raposa.
Laura Raposa, okay.
Before that, it was Norman Nathan.
So there was a wonderful man who was a news anchor here. His name was Tom Ellis.
Yes.
And he had a house in Sandwich. And we'd have these big parties, to which I was never invited.
Clam bakes.
Were you ever invited?
No.
Clam bakes, okay. So what he did was he had a zillion lobsters for all the people, this is a true story, who were lucky enough to be invited to this thing. A lot of celebrities from Boston, we were, again, not included. And we would have them as in lobster traps, right submerged in the water. And after he made sure all the lobsters were there enough, he went to go sit back in his chair right before the lobsters were boiled. What did his wife do?
She arrived at the clam bake and started stealing all the lobsters.
Oh, she freed all the lobsters because she was a vegetarian.
No, that's what she did. She took them away,
She didn't
right?
steal them. She freed them. She let them go in the water. Yeah, so that was a pretty good story there. Okay, Al on the road. Al, welcome. Who's the a-hole?
How you doing, guys?
We're good.
Well, first of all, I have a 15-year-old daughter, and I wouldn't discourage her from eating anything. She's a very picky eater, so whatever she wants to eat, she gets to eat.
I'm good with that.
But I'm a hunter and a fisherman, and I can absolutely tell you, I understand that that's not a very popular stance, but if you have to dispatch your food, you have a much greater appreciation of what it is, where it comes from, and really the price of what you're doing. it's a pretty important lesson. 15 might be a bit early, but it is something that people need to understand. There'd be a lot less waste in the world if people understood where their food was coming from.
So, are you a hunter, Al?
He said he was. Hunter and fisher.
Yeah. So yeah, I have a friend whose husband is a big hunter, and he goes out and he hunts for deer every year, and they have all this venison, and he's very careful the way he cooks it, and I guess it's really delicious. So how do you feel about the animals you kill?
I honestly, the worst part of hunting is killing the animal.
Yeah.
But
well, that is what hunting is killing the animal.
Well, if you want to eat, you have, it's an important lesson to learn. We're only alive. Every single one of us is only alive because something else died.
That is.
It's not my rule or my thought. It's Mother Nature. That's just the way it is.
Well, you could eat eggs and lentils, right?
Eggs?
Well, someone had to kill the lentil for you to be able to eat the lentil. Al, that was an excellent call.
You know something? We shouldn't be eating fish either.
No.
I mean, one of the reasons I can't stand fishing, you see what happens when you catch the fish, right?
Yeah, they ask somebody else to take it off the hook.
Yeah, and they're gasping for breath. They're flipping all around the pier.
They don't care.
It's horrible.
They don't mind.
No, yeah. They
Now,
tell you
we have an interesting text.
It hurts them when you take the hook out.
Do you know who Josiah from Provincetown is? Josiah is a friend of ours who we met because he was the boat captain on the boat where Michael Packard, you remember,
That's right.
who was the lobster, who I think the last lobster fisherman in the world, lobsterman,
who went down.
Who does it with his hands. He doesn't have traps. He goes down and grabs them. And there's a fabulous movie called In the Whale by David
Josiah
Abel. No,
will
he's
know.
texting. He's not calling.
he's texting.
And Josiah, who drove the boat, that's how we met him. He was the captain. Says before you feel too, and he would know this. Before you feel too bad about eating them, they're cannibals. If lobster eats lobster, so should we. By the way, every year we go to the Cape. Last couple of years, Josiah and Michael give us like 5-pound lobsters that are like the size of a human. He has a picture. His Josiah's girlfriend, who's been on our show, is Kat Wright, great singer.
Yes.
He sent a photo last year of Kat holding a lobster that was as tall as she was. It had to be like, honest to God, I've shown you the picture. It had to be like 7 or 8 pounds. It was unbelievable.
Oh my God.
In any case, we're talking about who is the a-hole. The mother who wants to force the 15-year-old daughter to watch the execution of the lobster, or the daughter who doesn't want any part of it except wants to eat the lobster. Ellen in the car. Hi.
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 It's Ellen from the horseback riding.
Oh, hey, Ellen.
Summer job thing.
How are you?
How are you?
Great.
Good.
Listen, 2 quick things.
Yeah.
I don't eat animals that suffered. I just can't do it. But my chef cousin taught me that you don't have to boil them alive and let them bang across the pot. The first experience I had moving up north here, they said, "Oh, Ellen, we got lobsters." I said, "Oh, they're so good, yay." And then I saw the way they cook them, and I went, "Oh, God, you boiled them alive. I can't do that." My chef cousin said, "You get a knife." And he was a really good chef, like top notch. And you put it right in the back of behind the eyes, and you slice quickly forward and throw it in the pot. You have the pot ready. They're dead.
Well, that's what this the woman was I didn't let her give the details. That's allegedly the more humane way. That's hard. But Ellen, thank you much for the call.
But the story says you have to stab them a bunch of times.
No, you don't. Actually, you don't. If you're really good at this,
spike a lobster to death.
Well, they're wrong.
You have to pierce the body in more than one spot.
If you're really good. Now, here are a couple of interesting texts.
Okay.
Anonymous texter, does Jim squeezing the liverwurst count as killing it? The way I squeeze it, yes, it does. Anonymous texter number 2, my Sicilian dad used to pour vodka on lobster and get them liquored up before boiling them. And this is from our Marjorie staff. That means our coworkers. Mm-hmm. No, lobsters are not monogamous. But if you ever see one sitting next to a tiny pineapple, that means they're polyamorous.
That's correct.
That's upside-down pineapple joke. You have to check it out.
Okay.
Read Christopher Mueller. You'll figure it out. Okay.
Yeah. Birds aren't, we always thought birds were monogamous too. I guess they're not.
I think some birds are monogamous, aren't they?
Not according to this story. They only pair bond, which means they hang around long enough as a team to raise the family, but then they take off for another adventure, as it were.
877-301-8970. Who is the a-hole here? The 15-year-old lobster consumer who doesn't want to see him killed, or the mother who says, you want to eat it, you got to kill it? What are you laughing about?
I can picture you pointing the crustaston at the lobster. Are you monogamous? Answer truthfully. This is important.
Coleman in Somerville, welcome. Hi, how are you?
Thank you. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
First-time caller, long-time listener.
Thank
really
you.
love the show. I tend to suffer from stage fright, so please excuse me.
Okay.
If I'm going to enter into a slight rant, but you can stop me.
Okay.
Okay. You sound good so far.
Thank you. So I think the mom has a real opportunity here to teach her daughter a lesson, and I don't think she's quite doing it from what the information we have. Everybody's a hypocrite. I don't think you can get around it. Even vegetarians, Marjorie, they are also hypocrites in ways. We buy a computer, it has child labor, making it.
That's right.
Good point.
We're all imperfect.
So it's impossible to be that clean. So I would say if I was a mom, I have 2 daughters, and I'm trying this sort of tactic with them, is figure out some economic incentive. Say, hey, listen, of course you can have lobster. I'm not paying for it today, but you can buy it. So, of course, she might have done that anyway, but to kind of balance out and really explain to her daughter where she's at. And kind of create a little bit more of a negotiation around it.
Yeah, I mean, that's another angle, but that's to deal with fiscal responsibility. There's another level of responsibility this mom is trying to teach her kid, right, Coleman? It's a little bit different, don't you think?
Yes, she's trying to teach her kid, but I think she's actually teaching her. She's acting like she's so clean. Maybe let's assume she was a vegetarian. Oh, she's so clean. She doesn't do anything in the world that harms anybody. Well, she's not. And so with the negotiation, she maybe give more space for her to explain to her daughter why she's doing this, the daughter to be more engaged in thinking, in an ability to negotiate in more ways.
We got it. And by the way, you dealt with your stage fright brilliantly. Coleman, thank you much for the call. We appreciate it.
One of our texters thinks this is just a scam on mom's part, that mom just really wants more lobster for herself.
Maybe that's...
If the daughter doesn't get any, all more for her.
When was the last time you tried a lobster?
I've had it from time to time. I'll eat a claw from time to time.
Well, you know what the key...
You dip it in enough butter.
Well, I was just going to say,
great.
how you transition into liking lobster. Now, I'm going to say, by the way, I know you're going to make fun of me. I do not dip the lobster in butter because it's sort of like the caller yesterday who said a chef will be offended because it's a work of art, what he or she created. You don't put salt or pepper on it. I don't dip it in lobster in butter because I want the taste. However, to transition, particularly kids who are a little freaked out by a lobster, they smother it in butter. And then little by little, less butter. And then they, you know what I mean? Apparently
the one I can't get is people that eat the roe of the lobster and all the little, and then you're seeing all the little tiny legs and getting all the little
legs. You
pieces
suck out
the legs.
suck out. That's fine.
The legs.
Brian at Harvard,
very messy evening.
Says plants are alive too. They're just easier to catch, which I think is a very good point.
Well, after you talk to Simon Montgomery, you can't even kill an ant.
Well, I hope she's not listening.
Feel so
by the
guilty
way,
about this. Yeah, I don't think Simon Montgomery would be eating any lobsters. Let's go to Mary in Marshfield. What do you think, Mary?
Hello, Mary.
Hi there. I just want to say what I think is that, to use a buzzword, in this climate, you support your kid and you do not put them through the trauma of having to kill something. And as a South Coast girl who's cooked lobster since a younger age, was married to a fisherman at one point, it doesn't make sense to put your kid through that. They don't need to deal with it. They can deal with it when they're 20 or 25. They don't need to deal with it then. There's so many other social pressures and stuff going on in their head. They don't need to have it repeated in their head that they killed or murdered a lobster. Just deal with it, Mom.
Thank you. We got it, Mary. We're losing your sound at the end. Thank you very much. Here's really an on-point text from Mary in Medway. Not sure this is on topic. Well, actually, I am. But I babysat an 8-year-old boy who loved banana bread, Marjorie. I told him that it was going to, if I was going to make banana bread for him, he would have to mash the bananas. He did, and we enjoyed eating it, but the bananas didn't suffer one bit. Well, that sort of takes away the whatever.
Okay, we're going to play a little sound. You're going to let it play sound from the Seinfeld show.
What is it? Oh, good.
In this episode of Seinfeld, Kramer takes lobsters from a commercial trap during a Hamptons weekend getaway.
Where'd you get these lobsters? At McLeish's Fish Market?
No, I got them in the ocean.
The ocean?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
Well, I found this rope and I kept tugging on it. All these lobsters came up.
Those are commercial lobster traps. You can't take lobsters from there. That's against the law.
take it easy. There are plenty of lobsters in the ocean for everyone.
My father was a lobsterman. He got up every morning at 4 and came home at night stinking of brine. He sent me through law school with the lobsters he caught.
2 days in a row with Kramer. Now, this is always a risky proposition. Remember Deb called a couple of minutes ago about having her boys, the husband had them slaughter the pig. And now, our staff, this is, again, always dangerous, and 9 times out of 10, an unmitigated disaster. Would you not agree?
Well, I don't.
We're going to do it anyway.
Okay.
Our staff has retrieved the sound recorded moments before Deb's family enjoyed a plate overflowing with bacon. Here it is.
The man who in his life had uttered fewer words than any of them knew exactly what to say.
That'll do, pig. That'll do.
That's actually a great soundbite from Babe.
God.
That is a fabulous.
I love that movie.
That's an A+ for our staff. Or Marjorie's staff, excuse me. That was excellent.
That would be tough. You know, I mean, Babe, such an adorable pig, and then the pig in Charlotte's Web.
I know.
You know that they loved him so much they couldn't kill the little girl. Rescued the pig.
I know.
Made sure he wasn't made him into a superstar pig. Okay,
now, here's
Nancy.
Dano and Dudley says, Mom should be very afraid of the daughter if the daughter asks if she can start a bath for her.
That's right.
That's a good
We're going to
one,
boil Mom in the bathroom.
Nancy and Quincy.
Yeah, hi, Nancy.
What happened? What was the boiling thing in the movie with Michael Duck? Well, Fatal Attraction. Yeah.
Oh, the
rabbit. The rabbit in the
Oh, yeah.
boil.
Glenn
Thank you,
Close
John.
boiled
once
the
again,
family
he's
rabbit.
incredible.
Boy,
Oh,
that was
Nancy,
a
I'm
scary
sorry.
movie.
Go ahead, Nancy.
That's all right. I'm not boiling rabbits.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So I agree. I actually agree with Marjorie on this one.
You do?
Mom's the a-hole.
Yeah.
Why is that?
She can teach her daughter, she can cook the lobster
Yeah.
and tell the daughter, hey, look, you're going to make it with mac and cheese or whatever. You're going to learn another way to cook it. Right?
Yeah.
She could do that.
Yeah.
Or if I was a daughter, I'd probably go to one of the stores, have the store cook one, and go home and eat it.
Yeah.
A lot of stores, Market Basket, others, they do that.
Yeah,
It's
when
true.
when I get lobster, when my kids come down in the summertime, that's what I do. I chicken out, have the lobsters cook it, and then you just have it all cooked, and you come home and eat it.
Nancy, thanks for the call. We appreciate
Also, you
it.
have to worry about getting rid of the lobster shells. I mean, that's
What's the worry about?
well, because they really smell, and you get
Put them in a
you get-
plastic bag, tie up the bag, throw out the bag.
Yeah, well, you got to be careful. The trash cans are very tightly. I mean, the animals like raccoons and stuff like that, they can really do a number on the lobster shells.
You're like a seafaring woman. I just realized. I never thought. I mean, you grew up in part
seafaring woman?
on the Cape,
Well, I did, but
and you don't eat any fish.
not really. Well, no, I eat shrimp, or I'll
that's
eat
not
it.
really,
Swordfish. I mean, I'm just not crazy.
Well, you eat
about
swordfish because it doesn't taste like shrimp.
Doesn't taste
It
like- doesn't taste like fish. Yeah.
Okay, before we find out where he is on the a-hole equation here, how was your forum last night with the mayoral candidates?
It was fascinating. I think that Mayor Wu clearly has articulated a plan that she's laid out for years. Josh Kraft is still formulating his.
He's still formulating his? The election's in a month.
Yeah. I mean, he had a plan for establishing Blue Hill, an arts district on Blue Hill as a corridor, an arts corridor. He has somewhat of a plan for finding affordable space for galleries and rentals in commercial districts, but there were still things that he said he was working to articulate. So I think there were a lot of answers that surfaced last night.
He's going to be, again, Mayor Wu is going to be with us the Tuesday of the week before Labor Day, and Josh Kraft will be with us the Wednesday of the day. And we're going to, do we agree that, I shouldn't say this yet. Okay, hi. Who's the a-hole?
So it's got to be the mother, right?
What, forcing the kid to do?
Yeah, how old's the kid?
15.
Oh, maybe not.
Do you eat?
I didn't
do you eat lobster?
I love lobster.
Do you have a problem dumping them in the boiling water?
Yeah.
Okay, so who does
Well,
it? Thank you for that. Who does that?
The
You-
chef does it. Well, I don't
You.
cook them at home.
You don't?
I just go out
Why-
to dinner.
Why wouldn't you cook them
The
home?
same thing. I hate.
Because of that
Wait a second,
issue.
you've never cooked a lobster yourself in your life?
No.
I
That
haven't.
is an embarrassment.
I know, and it's horrible. I drive by cows. I love cows, and then I love burgers. It's horrible. Life is horrible.
Wait a second. Let's get back to this for one more second.
Jim and
You like
Janet
lobster?
coordinated both the black
Oh, we did,
T-shirt
yeah.
kind of
I
thing.
think we look,
with the
unfortunately we look a
pocket.
little different. Yeah,
The
I
gang
only
is
wear it
saying
with a
they've
pocket.
never seen Jared in a T-shirt before.
Who is saying that?
The staff.
Her staff. Yeah.
What's up with that?
Welcome.
We don't have time for this, but I want to continue maybe tomorrow or the next day. The fact that you love lobster and have never cooked one is really staggering to me. Okay, what's on the show? Jared is nonplussed, totally. So, what is on the show thing?
We're going to be talking about the late Jonathan Demme, the director, of course, who directed Philadelphia and the Talking Heads documentary and The Silence of the Lambs.
Talking Heads documentary, Stop Making Sense. One of the greatest ever. Ever. It's great.
And if you follow his movies, there's a through line with music. Anyway, there's a new biography. We'll speak to that author. The neuroscientist and author Emily Falk joins us about why we get stuck in these moments of doom scrolling. In other words, why does our brain just kind of stop us in our tracks when bad things are happening, and how to get out of that and move forward into the future. And then Julia Swanson of the Art Walk Project is here to walk us through the hot arts district in Alston.
To ask the neuroscientist if a lobster feels pain when you dump them in the boiling water, okay?
Do you have an answer for me before I ask her that?
I think it does.
I think it does.
I think it does, too.
I think it does, too.
Yeah.
In any case,
Poor
nice to
lobster.
see you. We'll see you at 2 o'clock.
I'm
nice
upset
t-shirt.
now.
Okay.
You don't need it. What do you care? You don't
I'm
need
just
it.
thinking about it. I mean,
Okay.
look at that boiling water sound. That was terrible.
Bye, Sam.
Okay.
That's really hard.
Keep up with this. Oh,
That's,
thank you for listening.
that's like a pipe. It's like a pipe.
Blowing water in a pipe.
Yeah.
Okay. Or a bong.
That's what I meant. You would
Keep
know
up with
that
this
sound.
24/7 way of our podcast. Or check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow we're back at the Boston Public Library. Callie Crossley and Yahoo Miller for our media analysis segment Press Play. Comedian talk show host and 70s TV heartthrob John Davidson performs live at the library. And we'll talk to our media maven Sue O'Connell, Love Letters columnist Meredith Goldstein. Thanks to the gang. Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, Nia Harmon, Patrick Lally, John the Claw Parker, Jenny Bologna. The Culture Show with Jared Bowen starts right after us here on 89.7 GBH.
Quick quiz. What human being filled in for Johnny Carson more than any other human being as host of The Tonight Show?
John Davidson.
John Davidson. Wow.
I thought you were going to get me there, didn't you?
I thought I was going to get you.
You love that, Jim. It's really
It was James Polk,
sadistic.
actually.
James
See you tomorrow
Polk.
at the library.
Bye.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Mass General Brigham. Their leading heart and vascular specialists are committed to providing breakthrough care to patients with cutting-edge research and innovative treatments. Learn more at massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. An unlikely group of spies go behind enemy lines to turn the tide in America's fight for independence. Catch a new episode of Turn, Washington's Spies, tonight at 9 on GBH 44.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org.